Here.
Mr. LaMonica,
Here.
Miss Murray, Mr. Panarisi, Mr. Panarisi, Mr. Parker,
Here.
Sarni, Mr. Abraze.
Yeah, we have 6 members present. We have a quorum. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag
flag
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and to the
and
republic
to the republic
for which it stands,
for which it
one nation,
stands,
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
for all.
Okay, reading of the records. Number 3.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Parker.
actually, we need to start tonight's agenda with the public hearing.
Public hearing or public comment?
Public hearing. So this is the, we need to start with the public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 21 budget.
Okay,
And I don't know if you have a copy of Chapter 71, Section 38N.
I don't. Go ahead,
Okay, then if you don't mind, I'll read it.
please.
To kind of explain, the purpose of the public hearing. Chapter 71, Section 38N. The school committee of each city, town, or regional school district shall hold a public hearing on its proposed annual budget no less than 7 days after publication of a notice. Therein, a newspaper having general circulation in such city, town, or district. Prior to such public hearing, said committee shall make available to the public at least one copy of said proposed budget for a time period of not less than 48 hours, either at the office superintendent of schools or at a place so designated by said committee. At the time and place so advertised, or at any time or place to which such hearing may from time to time be adjourned, all interesting persons shall be given an opportunity to be heard for or against the whole or any part of the proposed budget. Such hearing shall be conducted by a quorum of the school committee. For the purposes of this section, a quorum shall consist of majority of the members of said school committee. So, Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum, and we have, suffice the guidelines specified by the Section 30N, and with that, I move that we open up a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Obremski. Can I make a comment for a minute?
Go ahead.
Usually, and it's up to the chairman, prior to the public hearing, either myself or the superintendent in the past has given a brief synopsis of the budget in the various sections of the budget. If you would like me to do that, I'm prepared to do that. If you don't want me to do that, I'm fine with that. It's totally up to the chairman and the school committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'll put that in the form of a motion to bring Mr. Obremski forward to give us his overview of the fiscal 21 proposed budget.
And I'll second, and Mr. Obremski and the superintendent.
Okay, motion made and seconded to bring forth Mr. Obremski and Superintendent Tahiliani to give an overview of the budget. Roll call vote, please, Addie.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert, Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi, Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes. I've got 5 in the affirmative. I didn't hear Ms. Lim. I'm assuming she, but I'm going to say 5 in the affirmative. Motion passes. Mr. Obremski, Superintendent Tahiliani, welcome.
Thank you. Superintendent Taliani, I don't know if you want me to go over the my presentation, or if you'd want to say anything first.
You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I would like to say to those watching at home that on Wednesday, August 19, 2020, the Budget Committee of the Whole of the Everett School Committee met for about 3.5 hours with central administration staff to review and ask questions in regard to the various sections of the proposed school budget for the Everett Public Schools for fiscal year 2021. As a result of that meeting, the Budget Committee of the Whole recommended the proposed Everett Schools fiscal year 2021 budget that is before you this evening. The first slide I'd like to share with you is the school operating budget for fiscal year 2021 would be $84,099,966. And that's up $748,145 from last year. Special ed transportation will be $4.2 million, and that's down $300,000 from fiscal year 20 for a total budget of $88,299,966. Now, the sources of funding for the Everett Public Schools. You hear a lot about Chapter 78 and net minimum contribution. The first, the net minimum contribution, the minimum amount the city of Everett must give to the school department. This is set by state law. So the minimum amount for fiscal year 21, $35,434,838. That's approximately 32% of the budget. State aid or Chapter 70 money, which you hear a lot about, it's 68% of the overall budget, and that's $75,001,709. Now, the total increase in the city net minimum contribution going from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21, the city contribution, the net minimum requirement is up a little bit over $4.8 million. So the required net school spending fiscal year 21 is $110,436,547,000. Now you hear a lot about chargebacks. These are costs that City Hall incurs for running the services of the school department. And Mr. Demas, the Chief Financial Officer, and myself have agreed that for fiscal year 21, the City Hall chargebacks will be $26,636,581. That's an increase of a little bit over $1.1 million from last year. In the total school operating budget, the net minimum requirement would be $83,799,966. Now, this additional appropriation request is a result of the amendment made by the school committee last Wednesday evening, where they asked to amend the special ed transportation line item, move this to the regular budget. So it's actually an additional appropriation request because of the fact that special ed transportation does not count towards net school spending. So the total operating budget for fiscal year 21 is $84,099,966. So like I said before, that's up $748,145 over last year. The chargebacks, which I talked about on the previous page, these are costs that City Hall incurs associated with helping run the school department. We pay for all the Board of Health nurses. We pay for one licensed nurse practitioner, a quarter of the salary of the director of the Board of Health, and a quarter of the salary of the clerk. For a little bit over $1 million, $1,090,141. We pay a certain percentage of the following offices: the auditor, the budget, treasurer, purchasing, and personnel departments. The reason it's 42.23%, that's what we were of the original budget in fiscal year 20. The school department was 42.3% of the overall budget. But just so everybody knows, in the treasurer's office, we do not pay for anything associated with the collector's office because that has to do with the tax collection, which doesn't affect the school department. Pay for the use of Everett Stadium, $51,000. Health insurance for all our employees, $10,894,558. Health insurance for retired teachers, which comes from the cherry sheet, $1,900,861. We pay for all the individuals in city retirement, which are our custodians, our clerks are now called the administrative assistants, and our paraprofessionals, $1,569,003. Pay for all the students that attend charter school. Right now, there are 645 Everett residents that attend various charter schools, and the cost for those students to attend there is $10,423,114. We do get some reimbursement back from the state, $1,828,642 for a total cost for the charter school students of $8,594,472. Pay for workman's compensation trust claims in the amount of $326,015. Life insurance for our employees at $33,812. Medicare at our employees for $765,296. Unemployment, cost of our insurance, we're self-insured at $127,257. Insurance for all the school buildings, $386,047. And the 2 school resources offices at the high school for $193,382. Very important to note, on the 2 school resource offices, we only pay for the school days that they work. We do not pay for vacations during the summer. For a total chargeback of $26,636,581. The next chart shows the minimum contribution in the sliding scale that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. This year, the minimum contribution by the city is $35.4 million. The Chapter 78 there in the red is $75 million. Special ed transportation is $4.2 million. That total for fiscal year 21 of $84.1 million does include that additional request of $300,000. And it's important to note that 68% of our budget does come from the state. Next slide. This is the percentage of total budget by category. As you can see, the budget is broken into 5 main categories. The first there in the blue, central administration at 4% of the overall budget is $3,761,209. Instructional in the green, 60% of the budget at $50,546,215. Special education at 26% of the budget at $22,153,644. Athletics there in the yellow at $432,733. In the light gray area is the maintenance area at 9% at $7,206,165. Very important to note that 85% of our budget goes directly to our students. Salaries are a percentage of the overall budget. As most of you know already, salaries are the largest portion of the school budget at 80% of the overall budget. Salaries come to $66,996,458. Non-salaried line items at 17% of the budget. In the orange are $14,828,508. Utilities, 3% of the budget. In the gray at $2,275,000. Salaries by category. Instructional, 92% of the budget there in the green, $61,759,084. That's our teachers, our principals, our assistant principals, paraprofessionals, directors, applied behavioral analysis staff, and our interventionists. Central administration at 4% in the blue, $2,664,209. That's superintendents, the administrative assistants are the clerks, the budget director, financial analyst, and the director of data. Maintenance in the gray at 4% of the budget, $2,573,165. That's our custodians, our house worker, and our supervisor. General expenditures by category. Central administration in the blue is 6% of the budget at $1,097,000. This is our police details, our labor consultants or attorneys, professional development workshops, our copier leases, our office supplies, and our postage. Instructional expenditures there in the dark gray at 14% is $2,440,775. And that's for our textbooks, our supplies, our music department, principal requests, graduation, occupational education, computer purchases, TV and libraries. Special education at 50% is $8,500,000. That's for our therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and speech therapists, any of our psychologists, our out-of-district tuition costs, and our Gateway to College program. Athletics in the yellow at $432,733, 3% of the budget. For our uniforms, our equipment, transportation to the games, our physicals, and our ice rentals for the hockey rink. Maintenance or general expenditures in the light gray, it's 27%, and it's $4,633,000. That's for our utilities, general work, which is various repairs for broken windows, broken doors, our HVAC contract, our electrical contract, our plumbing contract, and our sprinkler repair. That's 67% of all general expenditures are directed to students. The next shows the per pupil expenditures of the various communities around Everett. And as you can see, Everett has the lowest per pupil expenditure of what's called the former Greater Boston League. Some of these cities are still in the Greater Boston League. As you can see, the state average is $17,149. Everett is only $14,682. If we had the state average was per pupil expenditure, we would have another $19.8 million. If we had what Malden had, we'd have another $4.7 million. If we had the per pupil expenditure of Revere, another 6.3. If we had what Medford have, another 29.6. And Cambridge at the top is way off the chart. They spend almost double what we do, and they spend $121 million more than we do on their per pupil expenditure. The next slide is the percentage of the budget that the school department is. And just so everybody knows, the last column there in fiscal 20, at $227.6 million for the city budget, that includes the city budget plus the water enterprise, which is a separate budget. So as you can see, we've remained relatively flat at 38 to 39%, but I would like to say one comment. I did make this last Wednesday evening. The city, particularly the mayor and the city council and Mr. Demas have been pretty good to the school department over the last 4 or 5 years. The average over net school spending in the last 4 years is $4.2 million. That doesn't include any capital expenditures that have given us, particularly a lot of money for the Powland School, a lot of money to start some CTE or vocational programs, do some repairs to the New Everett High School. And they gave us approximately $750,000 through the whole tot lot and parking lot over at the Cavarian School. And that's only in the last few years. So I would like to thank the mayor, the city council, and Mr. Demas for helping us up with those capital projects. There's one last slide I'd like to talk about because it's important, because it's pre-COVID or pre-coronavirus versus coronavirus. When the governor's original budget proposal came out in February, just in the low-income students alone, we would have received $29,826,568 in low-income money as part of our Chapter 70 aid. When the final budget came out, because the state had some financial problems, they had to redo the formula. We're only getting $22,435,722. That's a cut of $7.3 million. So if we had had the governor's budget that was proposed in February, we'd have almost another $7 million to spend in the school department. It's very unfortunate what happened, but it's just a reality. But I would like to say, budget-wise, we would have been in a lot better shape with the governor's original budget versus the state budget that's being proposed at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Abramsky. Superintendent Taheliani, do you want to add anything?
Not at this time, but if there are any public comments or anything like that, where there's anything we can clarify afterwards, I'm happy to.
Okay. Okay, so where are we right now? Okay, here's everybody. So what do we need at this time?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd make a motion to open up for a public hearing to hear those that are for the
I'll
budget
second.
or a part of it, or those that are against the budget or a part of it.
Okay, motion made and seconded to open up for a public hearing. To hear those in favor of all part, none of the budget, whatever. Roll call vote, please, Patty.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes,
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative. We are now opening up.
I also-
Ms. Sani's here too. Hey,
Ms. Sarni?
Yes.
welcome Cynthia Allen. We have 8 in the affirmative, 0 negative. We're going to open up the public hearing on the budget.
So there's no one waiting for a public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing on the budget. Roll call vote, please, Addie.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
no,
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, 1 opposed. Public hearing on the budget is closed. Next, where we have? Public comment next. Number 4.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Parker. Oh,
I'll
right.
I'll make a motion to proceed to the regular order of business, which would be Roman number 3, reading of the records.
Oh, that's right. Roman number 3, reading of the records.
Waive the reading, accept and place on file. Second.
Motion made and seconded to waive the reading of the records and place them on file. Roll call vote, please, Addie.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes,
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello. Ms. Cardello? Ms. Cardello?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica?
Yes.
Mr. Abraze?
Yes. 8 in the affirmative, 0 negative, motion passes. Roman numeral 4, public comment. This time I'd like to recognize Mr. Parker.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to open up public comment, but if I can, on the motion,
Proceed, floor is yours.
I need a second on.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So,
Motion made and seconded to open up for public, go ahead.
So on the motion, Mr. Chairman, so, we have a new dynamic here. We got a Zoom meeting that's being streamed live on Facebook. This is to the people that are watching on Facebook. As you're leaving questions and comments, no one from the school committee or the administration is going to be reading them during the meeting. So please, don't expect any answers tonight. Anybody is welcome from the administration or the school committee to answer those questions that they seem fit after the meeting. So just to clarify, if you've got any questions, public comment period during the meeting is the time to do it. Facebook questions will not, or comments will not be recognized or answered live, but at best afterwards. Thank you. So with that, I call for a vote.
I was on mute, I apologize. Roll call, please, Addie.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes. In the affirmative, we've now opened up the meeting for public comment. Just ground rules, we have people waiting for public comment.
Yep, give me 1 second.
Thank you. In terms of ground rules, you have 3 minutes. We'll do it for a total of 50. The chair has the option, discretion to extend the period of time. And that's about it.
Yes, hi everyone. This is Flavia de Souza. Thank you for this opportunity. I am part of the Special Education PAC, and we just have a bunch of parents reaching out for this specific question. Mr. Haliani, I know you were so helpful and you answered so many questions last time in the office hours, but we just have one question that we weren't able really to readdress with parents. And I just want to make sure that we do give out the right information. So the question is, on the 14th slide of the opening plan, it says that for substantially separate students, services will be in person or through individualized remote services. So parents are a little confused by that because is that a choice? Will they be allowed to choose in person or remote services? And if so, if they do choose in person, where is it going to take place? Is it going to be in their own schools or different schools?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Parker.
just as a point of clarification, Ms. Souza, public comment is not a question and answer period. Your point is well taken and will be addressed later on in the meeting when the superintendent goes over the reopening plan.
Right. Well, we're new at this, and everybody out there is new at this. So again, anyone else out there for public comment?
Yep, there's one more.
Okay.
All right, never mind.
No one else out there for public comment?
Nope, no one left.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public comment period.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to close public comment. Roll call, please, Addie. Roll call, please, Addie. Addie, are you there?
She looked like she froze.
She's frozen.
She is.
There she is.
I'm sorry, I got bumped off.
That's all right.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes, 8 in the affirmative. Public comment is closed. Roman numeral 5, report of the superintendent.
Mr.
Superintendent,
Chairman,
yes, where are we?
Mr. Chairman, if we could suspend the rules and go down to items submitted by school committee, because we do have guests to come before us. And if we could take items 1, 2, 3, and 4 and invite the guest up to speak, then we can move back to the regular order of business.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded to suspend the rules and go out of order down to Roman numeral 6. All those in favor, roll call vote, please, sorry.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes?
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes, 8 in the affirmative, motion passes. Ms. Cardell, which one are we going to go first with?
Well, I see Miss Devaney is here. I'm not sure if she's here to speak on the request of the mayor. If
I
she
believe-
is, we can just take them in order.
I believe she is. Deanna, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me this evening. I hope you're all well.
Excuse me, can we have the piece of business read?
Yes. It's a request that the Fred Forestier Performing Arts Center be renamed the Dorothy Martin Long Performing Arts Center. It's presented, the items on by ex officio school committee member, Mayor Carlo Di Maria.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Mayor Di Maria and the administration, thank you for having me on tonight. The mayor apologizes that he wasn't able to make the meeting this evening as he had a schedule conflict. As many of you know and were dear friends with Ms. Long, she was an asset to the city and the school. Based on this, the mayor would like to please send this to subcommittee, if you are all okay with that.
I'm sorry, but
Ms. Cardello, you're recognized.
Yes, I couldn't handle the last part of that, Ms. Devaney. If you could just repeat the last sentence. The mayor would like,
To please send this to subcommittee.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Parker,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to refer to the subcommittee on property.
I'll second that.
motion been made and seconded to refer item 6-1 to the subcommittee on property. Roll call vote, please, Addie.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes, 8 in the affirmative, motion passes. Deanna, thank you. Good seeing you.
Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
Item 2, request to invite Ms. Tammy Turner to fully explain what she knows to date from the MIAA regarding any and all sports, including fall and potentially winter and spring.
Mr. Chairman, I move to invite Ms. Turner to speak to us.
Second.
Second that.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to invite Ms. Tammy Turner to address this issue. Roll call, please, Addie.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes, 8 in the affirmative. Motion passes. Welcome, Ms. Turner.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure to come. I was watching Wednesday night, so I saw some confusion, so I'm glad that you asked me to attend. So fall sports, the MIA came out with a ruling last Wednesday that fall sports, if you are in the red, which we are in the red, you'll be moved to the floating season, which is February 22nd. And so we, as a district, do not have a choice. All fall sports will be moved to February 22nd. However, that being said, as soon as we're not in the red, our fall coaches and athletes can start practicing and conditioning. The MIA has lifted the rule number 40 for the whole entire year. Usually that's out of season coaching is not allowed, but they've lifted that for the whole year so that they understand that coaches have a unique relationship with the children and that depression and mental health is very high right now with student athletes. So the MIA has allowed out of season coaching and contact with the kids. So as soon as we're not in the red, so athletics is on board with the mayor and wearing masks, and we're trying to get out of the red, because as soon as Everett is out of the red, we can start practices and conditioning. We can't do competition in the fall. However, I do want to let you all know that the GBL ADs and principals have been meeting, and we actually are meeting with the mayors tomorrow and the superintendents, and the GBL has decided to be a unified front, and some of them are not in red. Revere and Everett are in red, but the others, because we're the GBL, stick together, and they're all going to go to the floating fall, and so that we can have GBL championships in all of our fall seasons. So they're all going to move to the February 22nd, and showing a unified front with the GBL, because that we play each other and everything. So, but we also, the ADs discussed that in February, it's going to be very difficult to play golf. It's going to be very difficult to do cross country if there's still snow. So we are going to try to get out of the red, and the MIA has kind of made it so that each league can kind of, if it's appropriate, they can come up with their own seasons. So if Revere and Everett can get out of the red, we're going to try by October 1st, we're going to try to put in cross country and golf in October 1st, if we can get out of the red, so that they can have a season, because the ADs and principals are committed to make sure that every team and every athlete get their season this year. We know what it did to the spring sports last year, and we just want to make sure that they get a season. So with the fall being pushed for us, I do want to just clarify that, so each season will be shortened. So the winter season will be November 30th to February 21st. So there will be no state championships for any season, fall, winter, or spring. There's no MIA state championships. So GBL, we're going to make sure that we do a GBL championship tournament at the end, so that we can give it like a tournament atmosphere for the kids. And then after the winter, we have the second fall season, which is February 22nd to April 23rd. And then the spring season is April 26th to July 3rd. We also, the ADs also are aware that some of those things may not be able to happen in that time frame. So we're all willing to work with each other. I think that's the fact that they're all willing to go to the floating season shows a unified front, so that if we need to push something 2 weeks out because of the snow or whatnot, I think we're all willing to work together, and we want to make sure what's best for the kids. But that being said, we need to be able to just kind of fly by the seat of our pants type of thing with being able to provide for these kids.
Questions from Ms. Turner?
Yes.
How many, from the chair, Ms. Turner, how many, so were the majority of the GBL teams not in the red? Is that what you're saying?
So in the red right now, it is us and Revere. Medford feels like they are going in the wrong direction towards the red, but they are not in the red yet. So they could potentially have, but the thing is, if you, at any point, so if you start your fall season, at any point that you turn red, you have to shut everything down. So they feel that like they had to cancel their graduation that was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago because there's an outbreak in Medford. So they just feel it's safer to just push it back, and we're all gonna come up with the same protocols and same rules, same regulations. Our athletic trainers have been on our Zoom meetings together so that we all are on the same page.
Just a personal clarification. So I got misinformation. My understanding was football across the board was not going to be played in the fall, but that other fall sports were, the door was open. Like, to me, golf has demonstrated how it can be played with the social distancing by the PGA and the LPGA Tour. So that is not the case, or
no, you're correct. So football across the state is in February.
Okay.
Fall sports, all the other fall sports can happen this fall unless you are in red, whichever is in red.
Okay.
Or if you are doing remote learning, which most of the GBL teams are doing remote learning, you can decide whether or not you're going to do the fall 2 season, the floating season, or you're going to do it now. And because most of the GBL teams are doing the floating, doing the remote learning, they're going to opt with us so that we stay as a league playing against each other in all of our sports. But everybody else, because most of the state is white and green, they are going to be playing the fall sport now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anyone else? No more questions? Well, thank you, Ms. Turner, and we can, Millie, do you have a question, Millie? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Turner for coming. I'm sorry I've gotten booted out, and I'm calling in on my phone now, so I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know if something just happened and saying I don't have internet, but
you're on right now.
yeah,
We see you.
now. Yeah, I'm on my phone, so, but I can't get it on my computer, so. Okay, we're good. But thank you. I want to thank Ms. Turner for coming, and I'm going to have to watch that video live on Facebook because I missed just about the whole thing.
Well, if you have any questions, just email me or call me. No problem.
I certainly will, Ms. Turner. Thank you very much again for coming. And Mr. Chairman, excuse with the customary thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Cardello. Yes.
You're welcome,
Thank
Mr.
you, Ms.
Chairman.
Turner. Thank you, Tammy.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Parker.
just a comment, right?
Yes.
And this is COVID meets the census. So here we are as a community, we're in the red, and we can't have fall sports. Part of the reason why we're in the red is because the measurements that are taken are per 100,000 citizens within a community. Everett's at 45,000 people. We know we are not at 45,000 people, we're probably 50 or 60. So if we had a more accurate census, and I'm not saying this is the only reason why, I'm not trying to be naive, but if we had a more accurate census, we're at 50, 55, 60,000 citizens, that would change the formula. And we might just be in the yellow, and we could have fall sports. So please, please, fill out the census. It's safe. No one's looking to do you any harm. And it also adds $2,100 per person to the city budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Okay. Number 3, okay. Now this is where we go to the request to invite Mr. Rob Mareschi to explain the issues regarding HVAC at the Lafayette School. And understanding is Mr. Mareschi sent a letter because he could not be here. But
Mr. Chairman, the superintendent asked if I would read the letter. If you have
Okay.
any questions afterwards, maybe Mr. Demus, Mr. Bond, or myself can answer any questions, but I'd be happy to read the letter that Mr. Mareschi sent. That's okay?
please, please.
On May 29, 2019, the bid for the HVAC maintenance support for the Everett Public Schools was opened, with E&E awarded the contract low bid for the FY20 school year and 2 additional years to be awarded at the school department's discretion. In February of 2020, I was told that the Lafayette School needed to have the chillers replaced and was asked if E&E could do the work under their existing contract. After reviewing the contract, I made the determination that E&E was able to complete the work based on the fact that there is a line item in the contract for labor material for work as outlined in the specifications and not covered under the base bid price. There's also a line item for the purchase of materials. Subsequently, I approved purchase orders for E&E to proceed with the purchase of the chillers and labor to do so. At some point in July of 2020, other parties got involved and were concerned about potential procurement issues and placed the job on hold until a more complete review was conducted. At that point,
The whole thing.
was brought to Mr. Eric Demus's attention, the Chief Financial Officer for the city, asking if E&E was able to do the work based on their contract. Mr. Demus reviewed the contract and felt that the project was in compliance and instructed me to get a written opinion on the matter from the Attorney General's office. I reached out to Deb Anderson at the Attorney General's office to review the contract along with the bid price form of E&E. On August 13th, in correspondence with Deb, she confirmed that E&E is able to perform the work under their current contract.
Okay, so this is from the chair. So this is what Mr. Bond came before us back when, last spring, to discuss the problems with the Lafayette. And instead of needing that large amount of money that was necessary, it was found that it's in their contract to do the work.
And I'd let Mr. Bond jump in here, but Mr. Aprizay, my understanding of it, the original procurement was for 1 chiller. And then a second chiller broke, and I believe there were only 2 chillers in the Lafayette, but I'll let Mr. Bond. So this original work on this PO that Mr. Mareschi's talking about is for the first chiller that went down at the Lafayette School. But I don't know, Mr. Bond may have more information than I did. I don't know, Mr. Bond, are you there and able to respond?
I am, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay through you, sir.
Please.
Make a motion to invite Mr. Bond.
Yes.
Thank you. So yes, Mr. Chairman, in
We have a second.
We have, no, hold on, Mr.
We have a
Bond.
second and a vote, please.
Yeah.
I'll second.
roll- We have a second roll call to bring Mr. Bond forward.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes, 8 in the affirmative, motion passes. Mr. Bond,
Thank you,
please
Mr.
proceed.
Abraze. Thank you, sir. So you're correct, Mr. Abraze. In February, we came before you, Mr. Obremski, and I, to your school meeting. and told you about the issues at the Lafayette School and asked for our permission to, it was at that time it was $434,000. What we're allowed to do is E&E act as the general engineer on the project. We then went out to bid on every aspect of the contract, which is electrical, the mechanical portions, the cranes, etc. 3 bidders. This took the low bidder as part of the contract with E&E acting as the engineer. The project started, as Mr. Mareshi said, it was stopped approximately July 20th for 4 weeks. While that was done, he and I prepared a bid just in case to rebid it, and we were going to come before you if we had to. However, with Mr. Demas and the Attorney General ruling that we had actually done everything correctly, we started the project back up. It was a 4-week lull. The money from last year was not in their contract. It was money we had out of our general fund. That was why we came before you to get more money, sir.
I confess, I'm not a numbers guy, but I'm really not following this at all. I came before us looking for the 434,000, but I believe Mr. Mareshi's letter just stated that the question was whether the project, whether it was covered by the contract that we had with the NE. So, I mean, did we ever give this 434,000?
Yes, we did. So not in that part of the contract. We have permission in our contract. They have a maintenance and support contract with the school system. So under maintenance and support in Chapter 149, we were able to use them as a contractor to do this work. The 434,000, they would not receive if we had not approved this project. So it was not part of their contract set aside for them. We took that money out of the general fund and then had them perform the work, sir.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, I don't want to go off topic, but we have a contract with these people for, as of last year, it was like $600,000, and it didn't cover this work.
That's correct. So we know that the base contract is actually $498,000. Last year, for fiscal year 2019 into 2020, we had gone out to bid. Part of our bid included what we call alternates. We put in the bid for everyone to take care of and put a price on it, knowing work we had to do. For example, there were a job at Everett High School. The cooling towers. We have 4 cooling towers which were not working. We knew back in 2019 that we had money, so we included that. To do 2 of those cooling towers, we still have 2 that are no good. We added $102,000 to the contract. That's why their contract went from $498,000 up to, at that point, $600,000. Additionally, the Whittier School gymnasium, the heating system in the gymnasium was gone completely, didn't work. Gym was actually held outside in the winter months because it was cooler in the building than outside the building. That was also included in the contract. That was $97,850. That's where, as you said, the about $690,000 became their contract. If we had approved the contract this year, which we have not, we're just rolling over, the contract would have gone back down to $498,000. It would have been $200,000 less this year than last year, just so we know where it was. So you're correct, the total was $600,000 plus dollars, but that was because we had 2 jobs separately from the maintenance contract that we knew we had to perform.
I don't mean to disagree with you, but the proposal was for over $750,000 was put into the budget for the HVAC contract. It was $800 and something thousand, not $400,000.
Mr. Abize, that includes, so you know, sir, that includes the chiller and the job that we're doing right now. And you're right, the total is actually going to be more than that, sir. At the end, when we pay it all out, it'll be more than that.
All right. Questions anywhere else?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Barros.
Thank you. So the question is, what is next? We are putting up this money. Has the issue has been fixed at the Lafayette? Is there any other school that's gonna need any other repair like that? Are we expecting another request come in the middle of the year of another $400,000, which we don't have? So my question is, where are we with the situation that we approved at the Lafayette? Is that being fixed? If not, where are we with that? Second, as the operations, is there any other school that you foresee that we might need to fix? And if that is part of the budget that we are approving tonight, because we don't have money for surprises in the middle of the year.
Mr. McCall, you're absolutely right, sir. So the Lafayette job, as I said, was a 4-week stoppage. They are in there working now. The expected date of finish is September 11th. So we expect to be done just before we need to turn the school on with air conditioning. Regarding any other major issues we have right now, so I just mentioned one. At Everett High School, we repaired 2 cooling towers last year. There are 2 more that do not work. We're okay right now. I don't expect those 2 that are working to go out of commission since we just fixed them. So we'll be okay for at least a few more years there. But that's a big job. That's a $100,000 job. At the Cavarian School, we're down to 1 condenser out of 2. There is only 1 working. If that goes down, we would have a major problem at the Cavarian School. Major. No air conditioning there would happen. The English School, we are okay right now. It's still an issue we're watching. It's got some leaking that we keep repairing, but we got some issues there. Those are the 3 big major ones that could be big money if something happens.
So that is not part of what it is included in the budget right now that we are approving?
No, sir.
That's a problem.
We have most of our buildings are obviously at least 20 years old now, going on 20 years. So the HVAC system is at the point where they're starting to go. Every one of them. That's what we definitely have a problem.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know who can answer this, but if we're approving a budget in the middle of the, and we know that there are at least 2 schools, Cavarian and English, that something, half is working, the other half is not working or might not work. So if one breaks, the other one is not gonna work. We're gonna have to close the school. So why don't we include already something in the budget? Or why we do not have money allocated in the budget for any circumstances like that?
Well, it sounds as if, unless I wasn't listening carefully, that the high school, the Cavarian, the Lafayette, and coming down the pike is the English.
Yeah.
So.
Correct, Mr. Abraze.
Right. So. I don't even know. I don't know what to say, Mr. Barros, other than keep your fingers crossed, I guess. I don't know what to say. I mean, Mr. Bond, right off the bat, so you're stating that there are 4, what was it, cooling system at the high school, and only 2 of them are working right now?
We had 4 cooling towers, Mr. Abraze, that went down last year. And that is why we put to repair them. Each one was going to cost $51,000. We put it in as part of the bid. We spent $102,000 last year to repair 2. We can operate with 2. So the high school is actually not pressing. The one that's pressing more than the high school is that Cavarian job, because if the condenser goes down, we're in trouble. We have nothing. Where the high school, we can operate with the 2, and we're not unlikely to lose that one this year at all, or even for a few years anyways.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to do about the budget from the chair. I don't know what to do about this, but I think this whole contract, I think this whole thing needs to be revisited with a sit down with Mr. Mareshi, everybody involved in the city, because this has disaster written all over it. And it just seems like we spend a tremendous amount of money. And like I said, last time we talked about that, I'm just not sure we're getting a bang for the buck here with this contract. I'd just like to know what our options are. And when I talk about the options, I'd like to have somebody who is an expert in HVAC sitting with us. I think I saw Ms. Cardello's hand first, then several other people. Go ahead, Ms. Cardello.
Actually, I will defer to Mr. Parker. His hand was up before mine, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Parker.
Actually, I'll defer to Ms. Zani because her hand was up before mine.
Ms. Sani, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Bond, under these contracts, the work they have been doing, are they under warranty, and how long under the warranty for?
They are. So the work they do will be, and I'll be honest with you, off the top of my head, I can't answer that problem, Mr. Sani, but I can get that for you. But yes, we do have warranties with, for example, the chiller work that they're going to be doing at the Lafayette. We definitely have warranties, and I'll get you that information.
Okay. The other question is, why wasn't this put into the budget process if we knew that we're going to need it in the future? Was there any reason why you didn't put it into the budget?
I'm assuming you mean the Cavarian because that's the one that's really pressing.
Yes.
Honestly, just because of everything that's going on, we didn't put it in. It was something we brought up for possible capital improvements down the line. That's really why we've been doing the same thing we're all doing right now, hoping and praying a little bit because it's a major issue. All these other things keep coming up above it.
Thank you.
Back to Mr. Parker.
So, through the chair to Mr. Bond. Mr. Bond, back around February, March, when this whole Lafayette situation was presented to us, we were provided with a document of potential repairs to different schools that totals about $1.2, $1.4 million.
Yes.
Okay, so you do remember that, right?
Yep.
Where do we stand today in relationship to that document? I'm sorry, I don't have the copy in front of me. Where do we stand today in the relationship to that document, 5-6 months later? Because I know the Webster School was on there.
Yes, it was, Mr. Parker. So I believe that the Webster School was on. I don't have it in front of me either, sir, but the Webster School was on it. The Cavarian School was on it. These things we're talking about tonight were on it.
Yeah.
We were talking about putting it out into the capital improvements down the line if we can with the city.
Okay. So I know there's some debate going on here and others want to ask questions, but I'd like to make a motion that Mr. Bond provide us with a kind of like a state of the union of the air conditioning and heat, the HVAC situation within our buildings, where we are, maybe you can then please prioritize what you think the potential problems are. Maybe code them, get red, yellow, green, like with code and everything else, and get that to us so we can then, move forward and figure out some type of proactive plan to get us through the next fiscal year.
Absolutely. That's what I've been working on, actually, Mr. Parker.
I'll put that in the form of a motion. If you could have that to us within 30 days.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to have Mr. Bond provide us with a sort of color-coded, prioritized list of issues with the HVAC and across the school district. Ms. Cardello?
Thank you. On the motion, sir. I was thinking rather than just defer it all to Mr. Bond, why not send that to subcommittee, like subcommittee on property, and invite, as we were saying, like an expert on HVAC and so forth, and discuss this and have Mr. Bond bring that information to the subcommittee meeting, but have other people there that can speak to this subject as well. I don't know how you feel about that.
How I personally feel is I'd like to see, first off, a list of potential problems, and then sit down with like sort of troubleshoot this at that point, because like I said, this is I just look at it's a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, Mr. Abramsky, correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Bond, you also, do we have anybody in the Everett Public Schools that is considered an expert in the area of HVAC?
I would not have anyone considered an expert, Mr. Abraze. We rely on, obviously, we rely on our information from our contractor and any situations from there.
Well, that's what I'm talking. Last time we were here discussing this issue, there was the, again, I mean, it's another cost factor, but we were talking about potentially getting a consultant if the city does not have their own expert. And I'm not familiar with anyone in the city that's an expert in this area either. Ms. Cardello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask that question of Mr. Demas. Perhaps there is somebody in engineering or in the building department that may have enough information for us to understand. Eric, do you know what we're talking about as far as an HVAC expert, so that we can ask questions for and really look at what we have in front of us as far as all of our schools and where we're heading with this?
Yes, thank you. I do. And actually, yes, we actually do. George Lane, our facilities maintenance director, actually went to school for HVAC, and I've had some discussions with them since the last meeting. What I'd recommend is that if you could have that list provided to George Lane prior to your subcommittee meeting, I know that he would be more than happy to take a look and do site visits at each of those sites. I'm not saying he'll be able to do everything that he needs to do to be able to provide you with all of the information in fine detail, but at least I think it'd be helpful for him to do those site visits and then have him invited to that subcommittee meeting to be part of that discussion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we do have somebody within the city that we could rely on as far as that goes. So if we want to, we can just have Mr. Bond give us the list and at the next meeting, put it into subcommittee, or we can just vote that now.
Well, I would suggest from the chair that we amend Mr. Parker's motion to include that this list gets sent to us and also to Mr. Lane in the city. And then at that point, we schedule the a subcommittee hearing to go over this, because I'm not just talking about the work. I'm talking about the entire contract and everything else that we spend money on here on the, again, it seems like HVAC stuff, we spend almost $500,000, and it's like we spend $500,000, and if something goes wrong, we spend another $500,000. You know, so that's where I'm coming from with this. Is I'd like to get a handle on exactly where all this money is going and whether or not it would be better spent in another direction, if that makes any sense. So, Mr. Parker, are you willing to amend that to include the copy going to Mr. Lane?
Yeah, so why doesn't Mr. Bourne on this report, you know, include Mr. Lane?
Right.
And then present us their collaboration, reporting back to this body within 30 days. And then having the data in hand, the objective evidence, we can make a decision on what best to do with the next step.
Okay.
So I think, you know, my motion asking for such a report to report back with us in 30 days, then it comes back here to the body, appears on our calendar, and we take action appropriately from that, which would probably be to Ms. Cardello's point of sending it to the proper committee.
Very good. Okay. All right, so motion was made and seconded. Mr. Bond, preparing this report in collaboration with Mr. Lane, get it to us within 30 days. Roll call, please.
Ms. Sarni?
Yes.
Mr. Barrows?
Yes.
Ms. Cardello?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica?
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Abuze?
Yes. 8 in the affirmative, motion passes. Um, oh, okay, number 4. So number 4 is also, Ms. Gardella, this is yours. Number 4, this is the request to go out to bid for a company to check the air quality in all our buildings and to invite Mr. Bond to our school committee meeting to discuss this, I guess. Mr. Bond is already here. Ms. Cardello, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm going to ask Mr. Demas a question. Hi, Eric. Thank you again. On this item here, as far as, does the city do this within city buildings that they check the air quality? I'm not just talking about like the filters for the air conditioners, but the actual air quality? Or would we actually have to go out and find our own contractor or company to come out and do it for us?
Actually, I think it's a combination of the two. I know that George Lane, he handles all of our HVAC work throughout the city. He has done some testing, and when he's found results, he actually, sometimes we do need outside organizations to come in. But again, I would defer that to George Lane on the specifics. Maybe when you have that discussion with him, when the follow-up within a month.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bond?
Yes, Mrs. Goodall.
Hi, thank you for appearing this evening. Have you ever had to do anything like this in the past since you've been in this position, as far as checking air quality or finding a contractor that does such a thing? Is this familiar to you?
So seeing this item on the agenda, Mrs. Cardillo, we actually started looking, Combis has a list of contractors that do just what you're talking about.
Okay.
We've actually received some information from them. We're just trying to make sure they're bidding apples to apples and giving us prices based on the same subjects, because some people want to go through and do plans of every single solitary room and say this room should be used as a classroom, an office, whatever. Others want to do just an air quality test. And again, others want to check the whole HVAC systems. So we're just trying to regulate how much the actual cost will be. We've had quotes from anywhere from 25,000 up to 75,000. So I am looking into it for you already.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's so important. It's always important, but it's extremely important now. I'd like to ask the superintendent a question on this as well. Madam Superintendent, I know that you and I had discussed this when I was putting this on the agenda. Have you talked to any of the other districts that may be already doing this and have any idea? So I don't know where you would go with this, so that's why I'm asking all these questions. It's just not my wheelhouse.
Yes, so that's why we started to contact these. It was a list of consultants that other districts have used that DESE put out, so that we could have the assessment done. And so now we're just looking at which one would be the most cost effective. We do want to utilize George Lane's expertise first as we're getting those costs, because like Mr. Bond said, we just want to make sure that we are getting the exact right assessment, but we do have the information from other districts as well to see if we're getting apples to apples, if we're getting everything that they received, for example.
Do you feel that we should put it out there tonight and vote on the fact that we would give permission to go out to bid to these companies, because time's getting close to when we're going to be going back into our buildings? And if we wait till our next committee meeting to vote on that, it's going to be too late to actually go to bid.
I mean, I don't think that would be a bad idea.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, on that note, do you think we should do something like that so that we don't delay this any further?
Ms. Sani, your thoughts?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bond, in the past, I asked about UV lighting in the heating system. Do we have that type of heating system that we couldn't put UV lighting in for air quality to help with the viruses and stuff like that?
So we've actually asked Ms. Sani, and they're not certain that we could use it and it would work effectively in our system. So we are still asking some other people to find out. If I could for a second to everybody for this. So in our system, we control the amount of fresh air into the building and by opening our dampers. If the dampers are 100% open, we do not recirculate the air in the building. We have 100% fresh air in every space of every building. If we have and that's fine in the summer. That would be fine in the summer because you can take in all the outside air you want. Between that and opening windows, we'd have all fresh air and there'd be no issue with the air quality. Where we would start to possibly have a problem would be in the colder months when you have to start closing your dampers, because if we leave them open, obviously all the cold air will get into the building. There's also be a chance of freezing. So that we have time is what I'm trying to say. At the current time, because it's all fresh air, this is a problem we should get looking at for November, December is what it's going to really be an issue for us.
Parker.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Bond. Mr. Bond, we're going to open up school remotely on September 15th. So the fact that we won't have kids in school for the first quarter, doesn't it also work for our advantage from a time standpoint?
Absolutely, Mr. Parker. And this, from what I've been told from the people we've talked to, the process will take about 3 to 4 weeks usually. So we're talking a 3-week span that they could do all the schools if we proceed with this. But yes, with fewer kids in the school, opening the dampers 100%, as I said, we're not circulating it, recirculating anything. It's all fresh air. We're in good shape and for quite a while anyways.
Ms. Lambert.
Thank you. So just to follow up on Mr. Parker's point, though, we will have at least staff in the school, if not students. So are you saying that we would hold off on testing the air quality, or I'm just trying to understand?
No, I'm actually saying if the board's will is to go out for this. So if it's the board's will to go out to bid for this and do this, we will go forward with that. I will obviously proceed however the board wants. But no, what I'm saying is currently and in these warm months, we have dampers 100% open, which means we only have fresh air in the building. There is no recirculation of air within the building. It's all fresh air coming into a space. So from a standpoint of air quality, we're good right now. Where we would start to get an issue, if at all, would be as we have to start to close our dampers down. Okay, so if it's the will to go out to bid right now, that's obviously what we should do. It's a time thing all the time. Any recommendations they would make, that would give us more time to act. But I think in terms of, even if everyone came back tomorrow, teachers, we're in good shape for fresh air right now. The air quality is good.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Superintendent, are you looking to make a statement? Ask a question?
Yes, just very quickly. We just looked, and the list of providers that DESE pre-approved are already on state contract, which is why we've been contacting them first, because then we wouldn't have to go out to bid. That being said, they are doing this for many districts. So if we were to vote on the right to bid, then we would just have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to, getting someone in timing wise. But the ones that we are currently looking into would already be on state contract.
Very good. Thank you, Madam
Chairman,
Superintendent.
Can I add a comment to that, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Just so everybody knows, Mr. Demas can jump in. If we pay for this out of the regular budget, out of the general work line item and maintenance, there is a pretty good possibility that we could put this cost in for FEMA reimbursement and get 75% of the money back, as long as we don't pay for it off of a grant. We've had multiple conversations about with Mr. Demas in regards to what's reimbursable and what's not on FEMA. And I'd ask Mr. Demas to jump in, but I believe this would be a reimbursable expense at about 75% of the cost.
Mr. Parker.
Before Mr. Demas answers that question, a while back, Ms. Lambert and I attended a conference. Talking about FEMA reimbursements came up. We were told that it could take up to 2 years to get reimbursed by FEMA. So I want to, are you hearing the same thing? And second of all, any FEMA reimbursement goes back to the general fund. It doesn't come back to the school system. So if we did get reimbursed and it goes back to the general fund, would we be in a position to ask for that reimbursement out of the general fund?
I guess through the chair, I'd ask Mr. Demus to try to answer that question, because we have had multiple conversations with him, the superintendent, the deputy, and myself, into what's reimbursable. So I guess I'd ask Mr. Demus to try to answer that.
Again, reimbursable, but also what's the time frame on the reimbursement? Is it 3 months, 6 months, or in fact 2 years? Because 2 years isn't going to help us right now. It's good to get, but it's not going to help us right now.
I agree.
So first, I'm just going to jump in and say, again, thank you, Eric Demus, CFO. Any and all eligible costs, regardless of the department that incurs them, we're going to be submitting to see how much money we can get back from the federal government. This is certainly an item that I would include. I would be able to make an argument that it is COVID related. Again, can't promise what they're going to do. Second, though, in regards to timing, one of the things that we're doing is I've been in contact with FEMA. We usually speak every couple of weeks. One of the things that we're doing is that we are actually submitting our first FEMA request through June 30. As of right now, FEMA eligible expenses are through December 31st of this year, but I'm actually breaking it out into quarters and submitting the request to FEMA on a quarterly basis rather than waiting till the end. It triples our work, but the reason for that is that if I can get them to approve specific COVID-related expenditures, number one, it gives us a better handle as what's going to be covered in the next quarter. But number two, it's going to speed up the reimbursement process. And one of the benefits to speeding up the reimbursement process, obviously one, cash flow, we're going to be getting it quicker. But number two, if we can get them to reimburse us in a timely manner, then those expenditures would be reclassed to a FEMA federal grant, which would in effect put the money back in your budget. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it on a quarterly basis. Historically with FEMA, there's usually a very long time frame between the time the incident occurred, you incur the expenses, and then you submit for reimbursement. The reason for that is there's typically not any funding, and you have to wait a federal budget cycle for additional funding to come in play. What's different right now, and one of the reasons that drove my desire to do this on a quarterly basis and not wait until the end of the crisis, is that there is a lot of federal funding available right now. So what I'm being told by FEMA is they're going to turn the money around rather quickly. And so if we can get these in on a quarterly basis, I know a lot of communities are going to be waiting till the end. Everybody's in a different boat. We're going to be doing it quarterly, and number one, the line's going to be short. Number two, they have the funding. So my goal in doing it quarterly, besides just helping our cash flow, is to try to replenish these budgets for any expenses that they approve. So there's a good chance if we incur this over the next 3 months, we'd be seeing it in the first quarter of next year, which is still in this budgetary cycle. So in effect, that would open up your appropriation again to these monies spent, at least 75% of it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Demus. Okay, so sounds like someone wants to make a motion about putting air quality out for bid.
I'll make a motion that Mr. Bond goes out to bid for the air quality.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded of Mr. Bond put out for bid for the air quality in all our school buildings, all our buildings. Mr. Parker?
On the motion, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, he is only going out to bid. This does not mean he is going out and spending the money, because that would need further approval. So it's bid only at this point.
Correct. Okay. Clarification on the motion. Roll call, please, Addie.
Mr. Barrows,
Reading only, yes.
Ms. Cardello, Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes. 8 in the affirmative, motion passes. Okay. That takes care of items submitted by school committee members. We'll go back to Roman numeral 5, report of the superintendent. Superintendent Tahiliani.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. So before I ask for an acceptance of the budget, I would like to thank our legislators for their advocacy and support. I know it may not seem it now, but we were preparing for much greater cuts. And I want to thank Senator Sal DiDomenico, Representative Joe McGonigal, and the state legislature for working so hard to ensure we received the funding we did. I'm sure you all remember that at the beginning of the summer, we were preparing for significant cuts and even a second round of cuts potentially to programming. Because of their support, we did not have to do that. I know they fought very hard to get us their funds, and that they also have secured funds in the form of grants to offset some of these costs. So if it was not for our legislator support of our schools, we would be in a much more difficult situation financially. So I just want to thank them. So that being said, I would like to respectfully request the approval of the school department's fiscal year 2021 operating budget in the amount of $84,099,966, plus $4.2 million for special education transportation, chargebacks amounting to $26,636,580.
Mr. Parker.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a couple of motions before we move on that. The first one being, I'd make a motion to discharge the budget committee of the whole.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made to discharge the budget committee of the whole. Roll call vote. Addie, please.
Ms. Cardello? Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica?
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Sarni?
Yes.
Mr. Barrows?
Yes.
And Mr. Abruzes.
Mr. Abraze, I'm sorry.
That's all right. How soon they forget. 7 in the affirmative. That motion passes.
Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Parker.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the budget committee of the whole report of August 17th, to accept as written and place on file.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to accept the report from the Budget Committee of the Whole from August 17th, 2020. Roll call, please. Oh, and placed on file. I apologize.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica?
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Sarni?
Yes.
Mr. Barrows?
Yes.
Ms. Cardello? Mr. Abraze?
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Where are we now?
All right. So was there another motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Parker.
I'll make it then. I'll make a motion for favorable action to approve the school department fiscal year 2020 operating budget as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the school department's fiscal year 2021 budget as presented. Roll call, please, Addie.
Mr. LaMonica?
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Sarni?
Yes.
Mr. Barrows?
Yes.
Ms. Cardello? Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Abraze?
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes.
Right, thank you so much. So the second item for this evening is an update on the school year 2021 school reopening plan. So we are going to be sharing a presentation. So if you wouldn't mind bearing with us. Thank you. So last week, we met to introduce our formal reopening plan. Tonight, I'm pleased to explain how we are putting this plan into action for our students, families, and staff. Last week, we also talked about a framework, and now I will share the essentials of a finely developed system for how to best educate and support our students in the upcoming year. So from this point forward, everything we're doing is geared towards ensuring the EPS is 100% ready for students to begin school under our fully remote e-education model on Tuesday, September 15th. Our administrators, directors, principals, and e-education leaders have no doubt about where we want to go, and we are all moving quickly but intentionally to get there. So this presentation provides a wide-angle view of what we have relentlessly developed and put into place over the past 2 months. And for that, I have to take a moment to thank the countless people throughout the district, across the city, and among our stakeholders who have helped us turn so many of our best intentions into reality. So through these slides, you will develop a clearer sense of what we are doing to support our students, families, and teachers during this unprecedented time. These measures can be quantified, from securing Wi-Fi hotspots for students, to purchasing state-of-the-art equipment for our teachers, to hiring family liaisons to better serve our families. This document highlights many of the exciting things we have done to prepare for September 15th and beyond. And my hope is that you are left with complete confidence that the Everett Public Schools has best leveraged its employees, resources, technology, and infrastructure to not merely sustain, but to thrive in school year 2021. So in this next slide, to reiterate, we have moved well past the theoretical and mapping stages of our plan and are now squarely in the realm of implementation. So we are laser focused on operationalizing every aspect of 2021, including, of course, with essential safety measures that COVID-19 demands. What follows are the tangible results of steps 1 through 3, including the approval of our plan by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So during the first 3 steps of our reopening strategy, we created an infrastructure that guaranteed we received the input from every necessary constituency inside and outside the district. Tonight, I am presenting the proactive steps we have taken to implement the major components of our reopening. So these range from basic but crucial tasks relating to health and safety to making important determinations about what technology and equipment to purchase. So in a situation like this, everything is important and so many components are interconnected. Through it all, our work has been guided by one word: support. We want our students, staff, and families to have guardrails to lean on as we begin 2020-2021. This manifests itself in many ways. As a result, this presentation will be very informational and jam-packed with specific details about our dynamic reopening. So let's start in the most obvious place, which is with our students. In our understandable enthusiasm to prepare for a return to teaching and learning, it was imperative for us to be thoughtful about making sure that students were able to receive what we were delivering. In this case, that's a robust and comprehensive e-education that requires the backing of technology and Wi-Fi. So our planning is focused heavily on recognizing and addressing the fact that some of our students do not have reliable computer and internet access. So this slide highlights the tremendous investment we have made in technology support for all of our students. Families who do not have Wi-Fi in their homes will now have enough bandwidth and internet to support multiple children's e-education. We will refer to the parents who indicated that they do not have Wi-Fi during Tech2Go and a registration form online, as well as a call in. Our plan is to have a hotspot sign up as a station at materials pickup day. iPads will also be distributed to our youngest students. iPads are easier for our younger learners to use rather than Chromebooks, in large part because they have easier points of entry. And this was one of our lessons learned from last spring. So tablets will be provided for students in pre-K to K, kindergarten, and for students in our autism spectrum program that are age and ability appropriate to provide accessibility to virtual learning platforms from home who do not have an individual device for remote learning. In terms of Chromebooks, despite the fact that we distributed more than 5,500 Chromebooks last year through our Tech2Go program and volunteers that delivered Chromebooks, we are purchasing at least 3,000 Chromebooks for students in 1st through 12th grade. All students will also be able to pick up a bag of school supplies to support them at home learning, to complete their assignments, and learning that necessitates physical materials. So some examples include scissors, glue sticks, construction paper, pencils, whiteboards, highlighters. For the second round of supply distribution, we will be providing some of the same remote learning materials, such as pencils, erasers, markers, rulers, to provide students with resources at home and in school. So they have 2 sets. But we will also be adding some other specific art materials, such as paint, sculpture materials, multicultural crayons, etc. We are also in the process of procuring headsets for students at our e-education learning centers, but students who need headsets to support them at home can request one to be provided. And the last thing I will say about our supports for students is that while current circumstances demand that we take these steps for 2020, 2021, I would happily make these investments for our students at any point in time. The need to provide our students with access to technology and the materials they need to succeed is not obviously something that will subside when COVID-19 does. I think that this gives us the ability has given us the impetus to accelerate our progress towards these necessities for our students. Right, so in the next slide, while we are committed to providing consistency for our students as they receive an e-education, we fully recognize the fact that our most vulnerable students require and deserve specialized and accommodations. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or DESE, has offered very strong guidance in this area, and we have been utilizing it to its fullest extent possible. And in doing so, we've developed a clear approach to directly helping our students with disabilities and our English learners. So for our students with disabilities, the Everett Public Schools has adopted the instruction and services model of delivery created by DESE. This plan requires the implementation of procedures that allow all students to participate in remote learning activities. These learning experiences are aligned with state standards and a grading and attendance policy that has been implemented with the support of the Everett Public Schools. So the key components of this plan include consistent schedules for classes, services and therapies as required by students' individualized education plans. This model also includes structured learning times, live lessons, recorded instructional videos, office hours, live morning meetings, and small group instruction. Teletherapy services and counseling are offered through telephone calls and video conferencing. These services include a combination of synchronous and asynchronous supports based on student need. Google Classroom has also provided the infrastructure required to schedule all of the instruction and services. So social emotional supports are also scheduled through Google Classroom, and the support can be provided through telephone calls and video conferencing. So supports for parents, supplemental supports for students, surveys and informational documents can all be distributed through our Google Classroom. The use of paraprofessionals in certain classrooms will also allow individualized learning opportunities for students while also providing alternatives for managing student behaviors. Our paraprofessionals will be able to create breakout rooms to support students who may be struggling academically, socially, or emotionally. So this model will mirror the role that paraprofessionals have already been doing in in-person learning. For our English learner students, our SEI classrooms will have time scheduled for live virtual instruction from licensed ESL teachers that is symmetrical to the English instruction they would have received during a traditional school year. So in addition to an intervention block for an even more targeted instruction is something else that they will be receiving. Virtual platforms with specific supports and features in place for English learners, such as text read aloud on demand, text-to-speech recording features, and visual scaffolding through photographs and videos. And to answer the question that was posed earlier during the public comment, we did hear our original intention was to have full in-person supports for our sub-separate populations. However, we did hear loud and clear from our families that they needed a both and. So we were trying to tailor these services to make sure we met the high needs of our students. However, we do have families who still want to access these resources and the instruction remotely. So we will be doing both. We will be providing the instruction remotely in the same way that our other students will be receiving it from a special education teacher that will be assigned to those students. But we also, for those students who are coming into a building, rather than having them in an e-education learning center, they can be in a sub-separate classroom where they are receiving in-person instruction. So that way we can provide support for both our families, regardless of which choice they make. And again, that question was about choice, which we believe very strongly in. So yes, families would have the choice of which one they were doing. Okay, so in the next slide, just like we needed to acknowledge that some students need help accessing technology, we were equally cognizant of the fact that even with a fully developed e-education model, we needed to ensure that our families would have equitable access to that model. So to rectify that, we are establishing what we're calling the e-learning centers. So for families that need support in supervising their students during the school day, the e-learning centers will provide that safe space for students to access the e-education via their Chromebooks. So these centers will allow some of our most vulnerable students to access e-education at locations around the city, all of which will meet every established COVID-19 health and safety requirement. While again, their instruction is going to be online, they will be in a setting that allows them the space, the internet services, and the technical support that they might need in order to best access that curriculum. So this includes our students, our newcomers, our children of first responders, and other families that are in need of support, as well as our students who are receiving inclusive services. Principals and assistant principals will also be creating welcome videos and exploring small group tours of their buildings to help introduce their school culture to families virtually. So these will be recorded in our major languages as well. Our team of bilingual family liaisons will be receiving technology training so that they will be able to support families in facilitating the e-education at home, and they'll be able to connect families to necessary resources both in and outside of the school system throughout the school year. We are currently creating easy to follow parent-facing webinars in our major languages to be posted on our website. And the videos will also focus on technology support and troubleshooting technology such as support with Google Classroom. Regular food distribution, just like it is now, will continue at the Everett High School and Whittier School from August 31st to September 13th. The hours will remain the same from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. However, beginning September 14th, all students attending our e-education learning centers, or September 15th, our students attending our e-education learning centers will receive a free breakfast and a free lunch each day that they attend. Students who are at home learning remotely will be able to get to go to their school and pick up their free breakfast and lunch. So each school site will be open on weekdays, on school days only, from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. We tried to explore providing the lunch distribution over the weekends or during non-school days, but it is important to note that we will not at this time. We did explore that. So what we're aiming for is that once the e-education learning centers, the students have been dismissed, that then there will be less, less people around, and that will leave space for our families to come in from 3 to 4 and pick up their meals. Also, that allows them to not disrupt their e-education schedules from home. So prior to the start of the school year, we will invite our family community to live Q&As with an administrator to address any unanswered questions about our remote learning model with the family liaison there to support and translate. Our plan is to provide simultaneous interpretations for these meetings or to schedule meetings by language. We have also heard from our Strengthening the Bridges Between Families and Schools subcommittee that there needs to be a more concentrated effort to educate and connect our families to the various available community resources. So in an effort to mitigate that concern, we are creating a resource for families that will include a list of resources for basic needs with contact information to connect families with community resources and community-based organizations. Through a public health grant, we were also able to secure funding to provide a limited number of families with personal cooling devices for use at their home. So these are called portable evaporative coolers. This was in partnership with City Hall and the Elliott Family Resource Center to help address the extreme heat related concerns, specifically when addressing indoor heat. So we wanted to ensure that our families and students have access to cooling at home at the end of the summer during extreme weather conditions. So we have just received word that we were approved for that. So more information on how to access that resource will be coming to families soon. So in the next slide, we are currently compiling the most, we're really thinking about how to make sure we have meaningful communication, which is incredibly important right now, especially for this upcoming school year. So I know I've mentioned this before, we are currently compiling the most up-to-date contact information as possible from all of our families, so we know they're receiving the communications we send out. Last week, we sent out a robocall in 4 languages, giving families the chance to receive text messages from the EPS. Today, we sent out a text message to the EPS community with a link to our school reopening plan, which is available on our website in 4 languages. So from now until the start of the school year, we will be using the text messaging, robocalls, social media, and our website to send out brief but important messages relating to the reopening and our e-learning centers. And all of these updates will be translated. We are also committed to ensuring meaningful access to students' education through telephonic services. So this is instantaneous interpreting services via telephone. So school secretaries, principals, teachers, e-learning managers, nurses, guidance counselors, family liaisons, they will all have access to the dial-in telephonic service for interpretations, you know, on the cuff when you need them, but also for our lower incidence languages so that we can make sure that we can communicate with 100% of our families. Students in grades 9 through 12 were surveyed to find out their preferred virtual learning platforms and modalities. Families were surveyed to find out their preferences regarding remote, hybrid, and returning to school models, in addition to their access to technology and communication modalities and food assistance. Staff were surveyed on their preferred virtual platforms and modalities in order to help administrators vet and procure virtual platforms that teachers have used in the past and want to add to their repertoire for successful e-education at all grade levels. So we'll continue to leverage student, family, and staff surveys. In fact, we have a couple ready to go in order to make sure that we are communicating with everybody and that they are able to communicate with us. So our family survey did indicate a clear interest in receiving those communications via text, which is a practice, as I mentioned, we'd already started, and a reminder to staff and families to text yes to 67587 to receive alerts from the EPS. This week, we'll also be posting a quick and easy online form for families to update their cell phone numbers and email addresses. Parents will be able to use the form throughout the year to help ensure we always have the most up-to-date information, and there will also be an option to call in this information as well. Important messages are being sent to school families via School Messenger in English, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Spanish. We continue to expand our efforts to provide translated documents to our families. Recent examples include our school reopening plan, our end of year guidance and grading protocols at the end of last school year. We are currently working on a one-page document that highlights the major elements of our reopening plan, as well as a document providing easy access to community partners who provide assistance on essential services. And those will again be translated. And we are exploring interpretation translation services for both consecutive and simultaneous interpretation via Zoom, especially for our district-wide meetings such as school committee meetings. So in supporting our teachers, we've started with the simple premise that they should be able to lead the way. While the last 4 months of the 2019-2020 school year were characterized by uncertainty, our staff did bank valuable information and experience. When it became clear that e-education needed to be central to our reopening, our teachers have been ready with great ideas and more than enough motivation to put those ideas into practice. So we started surveying our staff on their preferred virtual platforms and modalities in order to help administrators vet and procure virtual learning platforms that teachers have used in the past and need to add to their repertoire for successful e-education at all of the grade levels. Teachers also expressed a strong desire to use the meeting platform Zoom and to utilize iReady, a comprehensive assessment and instruction program. So as such, we are in the process of procuring 1,000 licenses for business level plus 500 gigabytes for cloud storage that will support this technology and this access for our teachers. We are also excited to announce that we've purchased 700 Apple MacBook Air laptops that each come with a 3-year warranty to support our teachers in providing remote instruction to our students. Also, based on the responses to the teacher surveys, we are in the process of not only purchasing over 30 online platforms based upon order of teacher preference. We are also working to ensure the professional development and training for these platforms will be provided at the beginning of the school year. So teachers will have several days of professional development, and 3 of them in particular will be scheduled with live virtual PD for the platforms pertinent to their grade level and or content area. Also expressed in the responses to the teacher survey was a desire to have document cameras. So we were able to procure 425 document cameras. Whether fully remote or socially distanced in schools, teachers will be able to, so throughout the year, teachers will be able to use those document cameras to share their thinking processes in real time. So document cameras will project teacher writing on paper, graphing equations, using protractors, and other processes that need to be demonstrated to students at home or 6 feet away from them. So in terms of video cameras, we also purchased 21 cameras for each of the touch screens throughout the district to facilitate any staff or district meetings. To better support our teachers, we are also hiring a team of e-education learning center managers who, in addition to overseeing the learning centers, will also be able to provide on-demand support for teachers using virtual platforms, scheduled virtual live roundtable support meetings that we'll be hosting each week, and a technology newsletter each week that will have relevant information for them. To assist our teachers, I'm introducing the EPS to a single sign-on for students and teachers, which is a fundamental improvement to the way we utilize and manage our technology. So this way, teachers will have one place to access all platforms and manage subscriptions as well as students. So this will be much easier for families to navigate and support the remote learning platforms for their students. And since students are automatically rostered once added to X2, teachers do not need to make student accounts or manage student passwords. Finally, given the fact that students have not received in-person instruction since March, it is critical for our teachers to understand where our students are, specifically in reading and writing. So iReady assessment platforms for students in K-8 and Edmentum assessment platform for students in grades 9 to 12 are diagnostic tools that will assist our teachers in assessing students, determining learning loss, and help inform instruction and intervention to make academic gains next school year. So throughout the planning process, we have received many requests and suggestions about what online platforms work best, specifically which ones will best serve us during the all remote phase of our reopening. After careful thought at the administrative level and considerable input from our teachers, we have purchased or are in process of purchasing more than 30 online products. So this is a large but manageable number, considering we have to teach core content areas across 12 grades. So although we do not have time to review each single platform here, we would like to highlight some of the platforms that many of our teachers have requested. So for example, we purchased iReady for grades K to 8. Teachers were very enthusiastic about having this platform available this year in order to give a diagnostic assessment at the beginning of the school year, to assess learning loss from the spring semester, and to have adaptive self-paced math and ELA instruction based off that diagnostic. We purchased Edpuzzle for the whole district, which allows teachers to seamlessly add video content to their lessons, insert critical thinking questions during the video, and add supports while students pause the video. So this is a critical tool for demonstrative subjects such as science and CTE. We also purchased online versions of our effective curricula, including Big Ideas Math and Reach for Reading, to make the shift to e-education easier for our teachers. So this means students will not need to bring a textbook back and forth, even during our hybrid models, and they can fill out their activities and worksheets and assessments virtually. We've also purchased BrainPop, a well-loved platform that engages students in games to quiz themselves on content knowledge by themselves or in teams set by the teacher. So this slide presents some of these, and yes, so on this next slide too, presents even additional platforms. And although again, this is not an exhaustive list, we will provide all of the various platforms in our teacher guidance and information to be released regarding professional development opportunities for teachers this upcoming week. So we have also created a teacher resource website. It has been curated and created by our virtual learning leader team. So this was a team of teachers who have their finger on the pulse of exactly what teachers will need in order to make this shift. So they supported us this summer to provide teachers with a one-stop shop for how-to videos on Zoom, Google products, and all the virtual platforms applicable to their content and or grade level. So these were presented to our mentor teachers today, their professional learning, as they prepare to support new teachers into the district or teachers seeking professional licensure. And they will be also presented to our teachers at professional development starting next week. I have intentionally focused on the critical details here about how we are delivering and supporting e-education, but this does not in any way detract from the important work we have done to prepare our learning spaces for the safe and efficient return of students. So safety has always been our foremost concern throughout this process, and significant resources and time have been devoted to outfitting our schools with the proper equipment for this upcoming year. So the foundation of the district's health and safety plan is built on 3 practices universally recommended by the medical community. We must wear face coverings, we must practice 6 feet of social distancing, and we must regularly wash our hands and practice good hygiene. So no one habit is more important than the other. They only work when they are continuously practiced in concert with one another. So as such, we have taken the steps required to make sure our students and staff can consistently and diligently practice all of these habits in our e-learning centers and eventually when we return to school in our classrooms. So specifically, I want to take a moment to address some pointed concerns parents and staff have raised about the suitability of our bathrooms. There are approximately 270 bathrooms across all of our buildings, as well as 10 at Pope John, which we are utilizing for our e-learning centers as well. We have heard about some of the problems with damaged or broken soap dispensers and the lack of paper towels, and we are addressing all of these concerns. So to guarantee that our students have access to soap to prevent the spread of disease, all bathrooms will be outfitted with a hands-free automatic soap dispenser. Existing wall-mounted push soap dispensers will be replaced, and there will be automatic soap dispensers to every restroom, specifically for those with one, even with those with one sink. For bathrooms that have more than one sink, there will be more than one automatic soap dispenser. We are also in the process of procuring 112 standing hands-free sanitizer dispensers that will be placed in our school entrances. While we have installed automatic hand dryers in our bathrooms, we also will make plenty of paper towels available as well. So looking to our classrooms, we have about 255 classrooms that have a sink. And so for those classrooms, we are replacing, again, the wall mount push soap dispenser with a hands-free automatic soap dispenser. For our approximately 245 classrooms that do not have a sink, we will install a walls mount hands-free automatic hand sanitizer dispenser. So in total, we have ordered 600 hands-free automatic sanitizer dispensers and 400 hands-free automatic soap dispensers, both of which will be mounted on our walls. We have also installed plexiglass shields in the reception and main desk areas at Everett High, the Cavarian, Lafayette, Madeline English, Parlin, Webster, and Whittier schools. For the schools that do not have plexiglass, that is because of the layout of their reception areas. So we are working with each school to determine the best option to outfit those spaces, such as providing a desk shield in order to ensure the safety of our students and teachers. In assessing air quality and ventilation, we are exploring all of our options. In all of our buildings, we have changed every filter. All belts are checked and changed as needed, and all motors have been greased and or changed as needed. All building systems have been tuned to maximize operational efficiencies. All dampers have been opened to the fullest level, allowing for maximum outside air to be brought into the building per DESI and CDC guidelines, and as Mr. Bond earlier referred to. This setting will continue until further notice. All rooms and buildings receive outside air through our systems, whether a window is present or not. So all windows, if present, can be opened to allow for more outside air. The systems will be set to run for 2 to 3 hours after all occupants leave the building and start up again 2 hours prior to our occupants entering the building to allow for a flushing of the system. We are also connecting with those DESI approved vendors to assess the existing ventilation systems and to determine how each system operates or is supposed to operate and provide options for addressing any other ventilation needs. So of course there is a cost associated with conducting an assessment. And again, we are exploring ways we can leverage the HVAC expertise that we have also in the city. We are also procuring safety signage, including floor graphics to delineate 6 feet of social distancing and directional arrows that indicate one-way movement patterns through hallways, and other signs that will stress essential safety measures such as face covering requirements and the importance of hand washing. So signs will also direct students to utilize the hands-free automatic hand sanitizer dispenser stations. Also, to keep students hydrated, we are providing them with 16.9 ounce drink and discard bottles of water, which we determined to be the most sanitary way for water dispensing. Again, this is for the foreseeable future, but could be something that we revisit later on. We are also providing some technology upgrades to buildings, such as installing Wi-Fi to the Webster Extension in Pope John, as well as reconnecting chiller, cleaning and sanitizing classrooms, and general cleanup for Pope John. So again, we are requiring face masks to be worn at all times as recommended per CDC guidelines. Although DESI recommends that students and teachers bring their own in order to adequately plan for all scenarios and to increase the safety of our students and staff, we have purchased 184,250 adult-sized face masks and 295,000 kid-sized face masks. So since our needs will change depending on the course of the pandemic and may even dictate the phases of our school reopening, the best way to convey what we have ordered is in terms of if we had 100% of students returning to school every single day, which we know is certainly not the case at this point. But with that hypothetical situation, we would have enough face masks to last us 8 weeks. Nurses and teachers in some of our sub-separate programs returning to schools who may need to have physical contact with the student in an event of an emergency will be provided with gowns. This order would allow for staff to have sufficient access to gowns for at least 12 weeks if all of our students return to school for every school day, which again is the hypothetical situation, only meaning to demonstrate the number of gowns we have procured. We are also exploring if we need to purchase additional gowns for students and staff, such as those at the Devons. We have also in our inventory 17,200 pairs of gloves, which should last us 20 weeks based on the parameters provided in DESE guidance. We have also ordered 1,250 face shields for students who may have difficulty wearing a face mask all day. All face shields are reusable and should last at least 6 months. We are also planning on purchasing additional face shields for the students and staff at the Devon School. We've ordered 320 pairs of safety goggles for nurses and teachers of our sub-separate programs and enough for our students and CTE programs as well. These safety goggles are also reusable as they can be cleaned and disinfected. We have a solid inventory of hand sanitizer for both bottled hand sanitizer and gallons of hand sanitizer. So the individual bottles of hand sanitizer will be used by staff and would allow staff to have at least 8 bottles of hand sanitizer for their individual inventory and use, ranging in 5 to 16 ounces per bottle. The gallons of hand sanitizer will be used to supply our hands-free automatic hand sanitizer dispensers, and we have enough for 12 weeks if we use the hypothetical situation of 100% of students coming back to school full-time, as DESE recommends about 1/3 gallon of hand sanitizer per classroom or area. Despite the fact that temperature checks are not recommended as screening for all students due to the high likelihood of the potential false positive and false negative results, we have ordered 51 infrared non-touch thermometers, which would equate to about 5 thermometers per school. We have 300 containers of disinfecting wipes with 75 wipes in each bottle, which will be used in addition to the detailed disinfecting procedures our custodians will follow. Another order for an additional 720 containers of 50 wipes per container were placed, but they are on back order at this time as they are in high demand. But regardless of how much supplies we have already ordered, we are closely going to monitor the usage of these supplies, and we will order additional materials as the need arises. So we will be creating guidance documents to answer the questions on everyone's mind. First, we are creating a guide of what families and students can expect as we get back to school. This will give parties an idea of what e-education looks like, including details about attendance, live instruction versus self-paced work, grading and participation expectations. Our comprehensive teacher guidance handbook will include behavior policies for Zoom, the live instruction requirements, schedules, family communication protocols, and helpful guidance regarding hot topics such as how to proctor a closed book test using Zoom. We are also producing formal e-education center guidance, which will include safety measures, registration policy, instructions for arrival and dismissal, and policies to ensure these are launched in the safest manner possible. We will also include information on pre-screening symptoms and a checklist that families can utilize at home to prevent any spread of disease in our schools and learning centers. So our guidance will also address our thorough disinfecting procedures. For example, after the entry of students and staff to the designated e-learning centers, custodians will apply an EPA-approved disinfectant to all high-touch entry point areas, including but not limited to exterior door railings, exterior door push bars and handles, stairwell handles, all areas that are utilized by the entering staff and students. Our bathrooms will be monitored after each use, and appropriate disinfecting will take place. Sanitizing stations, soap stations, and hand towel stations will be checked throughout the day to ensure that they are amply stocked. And at the end of the day, all rooms for e-learning areas will be cleaned and disinfected using an EPA-approved disinfectant. All desks, chairs, floors, and high-touch areas used during the day and from which students and staff leave for the day will receive an application of disinfectant as well. We've already utilized hand pump misters to apply the disinfectant and await 9 more of those battery-operated electrostatic applicators to assist us in our disinfecting processes. So we will be distributing these guidance documents as they are finalized over the next 2 weeks. We are in the process of getting final feedback from the appropriate stakeholders, and then they will be sent out to our translators. We will provide an overview of all of these guidance documents at our next school committee meeting, which I believe is on September 8th. And finally, while we have made tremendous progress over the past 8 weeks, the next month will be especially intense as we meet our final benchmarks in advance of September 15th. So these include finalizing the PD plan for teachers and staff, communicating our implementation procedures, procuring additional equipment, supplies and services, and continuing our positive collaboration with the Everett Teachers Association to ensure consistent instruction practices and equal access to equipment and technology. It is important to note too that DESE's latest guidance sets the expectations for teachers to return to schools to teach, as that allows for students to develop and maintain a level of familiarity with a classroom environment, the teacher to have access to a broad range of instructional materials that may not be available in each teacher's home, reliable internet access, and for teachers to collaborate more easily with colleagues. We are working closely with the ETA to ensure that we can determine the most an effective and safe method for our teachers to instruct our students for the first day at school. So more information about that. I know that DESE's guidance just recently came out, but we will be working with the ETA and making that local determination. As many of you are also aware, also released by the governor last week was the new mandate that all children 6 months or older in Massachusetts, childcare, preschool, kindergarten, and K-12 schools must receive the flu vaccine. So to that end, we have been in contact with CVS Health to set up vaccine clinics to administer the flu shot for free with most insurance plans to children 9 years and older. These clinics would be on site at the schools or other school buildings that we recommend, in addition to setting up an outdoor tent style clinic as well. These clinics would be supplemented with the City of Everett Health Department flu clinics to serve those without insurance and clinics run by CHA. In addition to implementing flu clinics, we are exploring safe methods to provide testing for COVID-19, in particular through a collaboration with Fallon Ambulance Company and there's the Spread Initiative. So ambulance would be able to drive-through testing on specific days for a 4-hour window of time, which we are currently coordinating with them. And moreover, we are researching various apps to support families and providing daily fever screenings at home with a thermometer, and also provide guidance about whether or not to attend school or when to visit a doctor. So temperature and symptom logs will be shared anonymously with nursing staff, and no names would be linked to that data, but we will provide updates as those plans are finalized. But I can say with confidence that the steps I have just outlined will serve as the unyielding foundation on which we are hoping to build a successful 2020-2021 school year. That is our ultimate goal, and we will not be deterred from the uncertainties of COVID-19 as we are planning for all scenarios, however it ends up unfolding. So at this point, I would be happy to answer questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barrows.
Well, first I want to thank the superintendent. This is just incredible. Thank God you are the superintendent. We are lucky. So you mentioned throughout your presentation, but just want to re-emphasize the communication with regarding the choice that families will have. So you mentioned, but I think it's good to remind families, especially those who are who speak English as a second language, how, if I have a kid registered in the Everett Public Schools, how am I going to be able to choose if I want to be at home or if I want my kid to be in a learning center? Am I getting a call? Because a lot of our families, as we are giving out hotspots for internet, do not have access to internet, so they do not have access to our website. So how am I going to choose if my kid's gonna go in or it's gonna be at home?
So that's a really great question. So the default method is going to be the e-education from home. So if that's what a family is deciding to do, then then really nothing changes for them. They wait to hear from their principal and their teacher again about what e-learning is going to look like at home. So that would be the default method. For those who want e-learning centers, or again, for our students who may be on IEPs who need substantially separate services, they will be opting in through an interest form process. We will be putting that online. We will have it translated in multiple languages, but we will also be, taking to the streets and making sure it is handed out. I hear that folks are doing that at the Grace Food Pantry and would be willing to hand those out for us, but then also at our community-based organizations, or faith-based organizations, making sure that we are getting out to all families who may want to opt into an e-learning center.
Got it. Okay. And we're going to be doing that, you're predicting the next 2 weeks and a week before classes start. What is the timeline right now on that?
In the next 2 weeks, right now we are just finalizing, everything with our ETA as far as the staffing. And, we want to make sure we have our staffing in place so that like I mentioned, I don't know if it was at last school committee meeting or just a family meeting, that we want to make sure that our families know exactly what they are signing up for and the expertise that will be available on hand. So once we are finished determining those things, then when we have our families who are opting into the e-learning centers, we'll also be reaching out to them again, just to make sure that they fully understand what their school day is going to look like, what services will be provided, and how in those e-learning centers or in a separate classroom. So there's going to be a flurry of activity and kind of as there has been for the last 8 weeks, more flurry of activity over the next 2 weeks as we put all of those pieces together and get that information out to our families.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Superintendent, has there been any impact to classroom size, with the remote, or is that still? Can a family expect that the teacher they start with September 15th will be their teacher going forward and through the other phases?
That is an excellent question. Not necessarily. So we are doing our best to ensure that there is continuity from one phase to another. But again, because we will have some of our staff managing the e-learning centers and some of our staff doing remote learning, it is probably not going to happen perfectly. For example, we may have in our substantially separate classrooms where there's live in-person instruction in a school building, a teacher who normally teaches one grade teaching 2 grades combined. So for example, that then may default to what their regular schedule would have been at that time. What we're also trying to do is we are trying to build in, and again, the ETA has been very receptive to this, advisories. I think that's been a suggestion from many folks, is having each adult assigned to about 10 students that they are constantly following up with. And as much as we too could potentially have an advisory where the staff member who is their advisor, like again, it's another 3rd grade teacher in their school building, for example, may be a way to, again, connect those dots for the areas where we don't think it's going to match up perfectly. But I think that is a really good question, because you will have a consistent teacher from the hybrid model in phase 2 to the full in-person model in phase 3. But the phase 1 model is going to be much more unique in particular.
Okay. And then just quickly, the second question. I saw all the platforms, but does that represent any major changes to curriculum, or are those supplementing our existing?
So it's supplementing. So when we and also it's actually some of the stuff that we're already doing. So for example, iReady has already been an integral part of what we do. So basically it was kind of, you know, enhancing the curriculums, the purchasing of the online textbooks. So enhancing what we already have, but then also pulling in these supplemental pieces that allow our teachers to implement some new strategies or strategies that they wanted to back in the spring. There are also some new platforms that are providing our teachers with some brand new material. And so they will be getting training on those in the fall, or we are in the fall. So in the next, when PD starts. And so those two, they can opt into using, but again, every single platform that we invested in was one that came from the teacher survey. So these are platforms that our teachers are already using. And so it's just about expanding the usage of them.
Thank you.
Just from the chair, I just want to remiss to not mention, Ms. Cardello has texted me that some sort of problem with Zoom. She says nationwide, but she seems to be the only one affected here, and she's frustrated, but we have lost Ms. Cardello's presence for the rest of the meeting, I guess. Mr. Panarisi.
Yeah, through you, for the superintendent, how ready is Pope John, and as an e-learning center, how many children what can you expect for a capacity for that school?
So currently we have it slated for about 200 students. I'll need to check that. However, again, we are determining, like, we're making sure that the building is ready. So that could change depending on how quickly we are able to outfit it in the way that we need. So we have been working to get that site prepared. And also we have had a tremendous amount of support from the city as well in getting that site prepared. So we are currently, the plan is to use the bottom 2 floors. And so hopefully if that all comes to fruition, it would be anywhere from 150 to 200 students in that school. Actually, sorry, 100 to 150 students in that school.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Sani.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I didn't hear this or not. Do we have a procedure in place if someone gets sick, and what we do with the school in notifying the parents, or classrooms, if we're going to keep it open or close it? Or
So yes, so guidance has come out from the state, and that will be included in the guidance that we are giving to our teachers. We're also working with our ETA on that, again, to make sure that everybody feels fully comfortable with the way we are handling everything. So DESE has given out great guidance, but we again want to make sure that the guidance is tailored specifically to our needs here in Everett. So we may be enhancing it, or even making it slightly more conservative in areas. And there's also a communication plan that is written into that for who will be communicated to, how, and when.
so if someone got sick and we know they have COVID, they would either shut the school down or the classroom and see how bad it is and notify the parents.
Exactly. So, it depends on like the level of the severity, the difference between somebody who was in contact with somebody who may have had, versus somebody who was tested positive. So there's like a flow chart and a scenario for every single one of them. Also, we are trying to keep those spaces very consistent so that we can contact trace, so that we could isolate it to one specific space. However, if there was any question whatsoever, we would not hesitate to, having a small closure in order to make sure that we were keeping everybody's safety in mind.
Do we have set up to be able to have them tested COVID as well, if a parent chooses to immediately? And
yes. So we are working on COVID testing, and also that speaks to the drive-through testing as well for both our students, but also in, prioritizing our staff as well.
So I know some programs are getting funded by the state, money back, which right now everyone says it's free, but some people are paying for it. But I know a lot of programs are getting funded from the state to get tested for their employees or workers or so.
Yeah, so these are all things that we are trying to coordinate and explore over the next few weeks. So for example, when we have our 9 days of professional development, our goal is to try to see what we can do as far as supporting our teachers at that time. And again, you know, any area where there is, and if you hear of ones that we haven't heard of, please let us know. Any area where there is funding or opportunities, we're definitely interested. In fact, we have been very lucky because we have had the City Health Department, but we've also had others like CVS Health who have actually reached out to us to offer no-cost testing or no-cost vaccines. But again, considering the number of students and staff that we do have, we imagine that not one partner can help us do everything. So we may need to leverage several different partners and resources in order to get this done.
Thank you.
Mr. Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the superintendent. iReady, is that a K through 12 platform or just K through 8?
Just K through 8.
Has Mr. Norman expressed an interest in iReady in the past?
So they don't have it past grade 8. So this year we're going to Imagine Learning instead, which they have an Imagine Math for 9 to 12. Plus we've invested in some other platforms again that our teachers have expressed interest in. I think IXL is one of them as well that's for math at the higher grade levels, but they do not have it past grade 8.
Okay, so I'm thinking about something else. Pre-K, we'll be supporting 3-4-year-olds and start on a remote basis, such as everybody else.
Yes, and we're actually also exploring, so we've purchased the iPads for our students because we do believe that that's developmentally more appropriate for our younger students. So that's what we will be distributing to them. We are also exploring the TV programming that we have access to and actually creating video lessons that are specifically geared towards that age group. I know there are a lot already that are on TV, but ones that actually have our teachers, our read alouds, our lessons. We're also exploring that for our specialty classes too. Again, these areas where we think that we can, you know, again, we're trying to think about developmental appropriateness and the appropriateness of the content as we figure out what modality we're using. So that is another way we are going to be able to support our younger students.
Okay. And one of the questions I keep on saying, hearing over and over again is, what about my child on an IEP? How would you answer that easily, quickly?
So we will be supporting and adhering to the IEP. As it is written, we will be reaching out to the families to, again, ensure that they are getting the services that they need in the way that they need them. So that's going to look different if a family does decide to go remote, but then it could look, you know, very similar if they are in one of our e-learning centers or in one of our substantially separate classrooms. Also, we actually have Mr. Donahue on here as well, so I can let him speak to this as well. But we have received a significant amount of guidance from DESE regarding how to support our students who are on IEPs, how to potentially work with the families in order to modify some of the services, but I'll let him speak more specifically to that.
Yeah.
Make motion to invite Mr. Donahue before us.
I'll second the motion.
Good. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, you want
I'm
me-
on mute. Motion made and seconded to invite Mr. Donahue forward. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes, 8 in the affirmative. Motion passes. Welcome, Mr. Donahue.
Thank you. A lot of our work in the fall is going to begin with COVID learning plans. The state just issued a template for those plans for us, which will cover all types of learning, remote, in-person, and hybrid. We'll be completing those and getting those out in September. And then at that point, we start having individual meetings with families, Mr. Parker, where we start reaching out to them and we start having meetings to discuss what has happened with the students since March, what issues the parents are seeing, what issues we're seeing when teachers are meeting with students. And then we look at our iReady data and other data to see what additional supports we need to add to student plans to better support them, whether they're remote, they're in person, or they're in a hybrid model. They're going to go on throughout the year, and then we'll be looking at how do we provide additional supports during the school year, during next summer, and really just even during the school day to help out students.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anyone else? Okay. So that was for informational purposes, I take it, Madam Superintendent?
Yes. Oh, wait, okay. Just wanted to make sure I was unmuted. Yes, so we will move to the next item on the agenda, number 3, which is requesting approval to accept the following grants. So the Coordinated Family and Community Engagement Grant in the amount of $47,690. The goal of this grant is to help support and reach out to families for early childhood. So we will be utilizing this grant to fund a project coordinator who will be responsible for facilitating most early learning classes and family workshops, while also attending community events designed to support and reach out to families. Should I go through all of the grants at once, or do you want to take them separately?
I believe all of them at once would be fine, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. Also, the Innovation to Pathway Grant in the amount of $30,000. The Innovation to Pathway Grant to provide program implementation resources to an LEA who has achieved Innovation Pathway designation from DESE in spring of 2019, which we have. So we are planning to utilize the grant to purchase textbook, data collection, bus transportation, and professional development. The Remote Learning Technology Essential Grant in the amount of $775,335. So this grant helps ensure remote learning technology needs by ensuring that every student has adequate access to technology during remote learning environments. So the grant will be used to purchase hotspots and iPads for our K0 to K2 and sub-separate students. Also, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund for $1,562,791. So the CARES, or Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, Elementary and Secondary Education Emergency Relief, or ESSER Fund, provides resources to school districts to address the impact of coronavirus that has had and it continues to have on our elementary and secondary schools. So this grant will be utilized for procuring the PPE materials that we have been investing in, technology for remote learning, online curriculum, staffing for remote learning centers, telecommunications, etc. Also, the Voters Registration Grant for $1,500. This grant is used to promote civic engagement of our high school students through initiatives that encourage them to register or pre-register to vote. So the grant will be used to stipend a coordinator for the voting program. And that is all.
Good. Okay.
Move for favorable action.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded for favorable action on the roll call, please, Addie.
Cardello,
Yes.
Miss Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Miss Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes, 8 in the affirmative, motion passes.
I got to say, Mrs. Cardello, I got to hand it to you, doing your great Shelby Scott impersonation.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. This has been the worst night of my life.
You're pirating somebody's
this is what
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no, you know what? I just sent you, a couple of you, the link that I got from Zoom, that they've actually had a national problem today. And even trying to dial in, I wasn't able to dial in. It was telling me the meeting was over.
So I'm very upset about it. I'm going to have to watch the whole thing over again and then send emails to get my questions answered.
So yes, there was a Zoom issue today. We don't anticipate anything like that in the upcoming school year though, so that's the good news. All right, number 4, I respectfully request acceptance of back to school gift cards from Exelon Generation in the amount of $20,000. Each year, Ms. Carol Churchill from Exelon donates gift cards to the Everett Public Schools. This year, they have graciously increased their donation from $10,000 to $20,000. So this money will be used to distribute back to school gift cards to students and families in need.
I make a motion to accept the gift cards and a letter of thanks.
Second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded to accept the generous gift and send a letter of thanks. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes. 8 in the affirmative, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Gardell.
if my colleagues would so indulge me, I only actually have 2 questions. And I would like to ask the superintendent now, if I may.
Questions about the school reopening?
Yes,
Okay.
I appreciate it. Try to lessen my frustration. One of my questions is, how are we moving forward with the vocational pathways? Are we going to be able to do anything with that now?
Yes, so that is why we have invested in some of the particular virtual platforms and tools that we have, because again, they'll be able to support some of our more hands-on activities, such as like for videos and interactive activities for our science classes, our CTE classes. But again, you know, our teachers are planning accordingly, knowing that the beginning of the school year is going to start remotely. So there may be some changes in the sequence of some of the activities they would normally do in order to try and have some of those be when we do come back in person. But they do have still quite a bit of the, the classroom portion of it that they would still be able to do this upcoming year.
Okay, thank you for that. And one other thing, because I missed most of everything, I have to watch the whole thing. Are we planning on doing an after-school program, like the FKO group or any group that you were thinking of?
At this time, we are not. We are going to be utilizing that time for meal distribution at all of our school buildings. So that will be happening outside, and for cleaning of our school buildings.
Okay.
That later on in the school year, that could be a possibility, but as with everything we're doing this year, we're considering a phased in approach. So to start, with our regular school hours for those e-learning centers and some of those substantially separate classrooms, and serving, breakfast and lunch on site. Many schools, districts are actually releasing before lunch in order to, mitigate that concern. So we really just want to make sure that we are being very strategic and thoughtful as we begin the school year, and very conservative, and that we can always expand the services that we provide and the amount of families we provide them to as the school year goes on, as we prove successful in each step.
Okay, I'm not trying to sneak in a third question because I said only a couple, but as a follow-up to that, what about our students that are going to be in the e-learning centers? What will we do once they're phased in? What will we do? Will we have the program then for them? Because I think they're the vulnerable ones at that point if they're going to be in our e-learning centers. they will need something for after the school hours are over.
And while we understand that, again, we want to try to minimize the amount of time that our students are in the building, but at the same time, we don't want to shorten the school day and do a half-day dismissal. So again, this is the way that we are, again, kind of phasing in services. So we will definitely explore that. And we are exploring some options for what that could look like a couple of weeks into the school year. But we really do, again, want to just make sure that we are at least successful in coming back for the whole school day before we start expanding hours. We also want to use our school buildings. There's been a lot of requests for social clubs, social circles, things of that nature. And so one of the areas that we do think it might be good to use our school buildings for some after school activities are ones that are more social emotionally related, even potentially bringing back some of our teams that may not be able to practice, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't convene in some way. So we are thinking about how we can utilize our school spaces for those as well. So again, we are hesitant to start after school programs as well.
Okay. Following up with that one. Is there an option for parents who are going to need them?
That's pretty good.
But it's still on the same subject of the after-school program. And the reason I'm asking these is because I have a lot of parents who do have the opportunity to go back to work, and they've utilized that program in the past, and there's a little bit of a panic going on now. So is there something outside of the district that people can use?
So there are some that I know of that are providing those services, and we can certainly try to connect our families with some of those. I don't know, we've actually been working with one of them, and I don't know that they have a ton of capacity. That is sort of the issue right now, is finding places that have capacity. And again, when you're thinking about turnover of staff, so you remember an after school program means a new staff that comes in. And again, that creates another risk factor as far as the contact tracing, as far as the, the trying to mitigate the spread. And so there are some programs that we've actually connected with that are hesitant to bring in students that have been in another center, for half of the day with other students. So some of the programs that we have, or partnerships that we've looked at, are ones that are keeping the students all day, which would also be an amazing service to provide our students. But yes, I admit that this is definitely an imperfection in an area where we do wish that we could support more. But again, we want to be really thoughtful about the implementation of it and make sure that we're not creating too many variables that could then, put us in a situation where we're unsure what went wrong. We want to keep things very regulated, keep things very consistent, keep our cohorts very consistent, and keep the users of our building to a minimum.
Thank you. I will watch the meeting again and listen to everything, and I'm sure I'll have more questions. But for now, I want to say thank you for taking the time to answer me, and thank you to my colleagues for indulging me.
You have been indulged. Next.
All right, so the final item on the agenda under my report is a request for the approval of the updated Title IX policy. And with your permission, I would like to turn this over to our Human Resources Director, Frances Canty, to present on the updated Title IX policy.
We have to do a motion on that.
Motion by Ms. Canty.
Invite our HR Director, Ms. Frances Canty.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded to bring forth HR Director, Ms. Canty. Roll call, please.
Ms. Cardello?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica?
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes. 8 in the affirmative. Welcome, Ms. Canty.
Hi, how's everyone doing this evening?
Pretty well.
Nice seeing you guys again.
Good.
So, as some of you are probably aware of, in May of this year, the Department of Education passed new guidelines pertaining to Title IX. And one of the stipulation is that secondary and post-secondary education institution needed to update their regulations. And some of the regulations, it moved from being, the new regulations are more guided by due process and First Amendment. So it came from guided more of fairness and now it's taking into account the respondent, the individual who has also been accused of a Title IX violation. And one of the other things the new regulation has done is it has changed the obligation of secondary education. So it used to be you did not have to have actual notice. Notice could be from being told from secondhand information, being told by bystanders. The new regulations require that an individual has to file a complaint with the Title IX director in order for a case to move forward. If that individual does not want to file that, does not want to move forward, unfortunately, unless the school, us, have reasons, we cannot move forward. I have to preface this by saying that the Attorney General of the Commonwealth and 24 other Attorney Generals are presently suing the Department of Education because of these new regulations. The new regulations are not, I don't love them, to be honest. They're a little bit shaming of individuals who might have faced sexual harassment in some capacity, and it actually takes away some of the anonymity that you used to have. The rules now require that you can no longer make anonymous Title IX complaints. You have to now, if someone files a complaint, the respondent is who they're calling the alleged harasser, now has to be given a report of that complaint. I know it's a little harsh, but that is what like I said, the rules now is focused more on due process, and it focused more on giving the respondent the ability to respond to the allegations that's being made against them. And it also, one of the things that it did do was like, it broke down the way you investigate a Title IX case. It used to be that the investigator can also be the decision maker. That is no longer the case. The decision maker and the investigator cannot be the same person, nor can the person who's in charge of the appellant aspect of it. So if after the decision maker makes a decision, if you want to appeal that decision, that also has to be a different person. And the Title IX coordinator can no longer be the investigator of a Title IX complaint. So it's broken down now to 4 phases. So there's a Title IX coordinator, there's an investigator, a decision maker, and then there's a person whom you have to appeal to. And one of the other things that it's requiring is that individuals are given support in the sense that the respondent as well as the complainant, they both have to be given some type of support, either if they either through means for student purposes, maybe you can say that, you know, we're going to get a police to walk you to class. We're going to have, we're going to create certain mechanisms that you don't have to be around that person. But the new regulations also require that you give the respondent those same support that you would give the complainant. Schools now have to offer informal resolutions. Both parties have to agree to those informal resolutions before you can move forward. And if one party decide not to go forward with those informal resolution, then you have to proceed. Additionally, one of the aspects though, if it's a situation where if it's a student alleging making an allegation against a teacher, those informal resolutions are not an option because as teachers and as individuals who work in schools, we are mandatory reporters. So that aspect of the law has not gone away. It's the manner, what's really changed is the procedural aspect of it and the manner in which Title IX are investigated. And some of the rules have become more limited in the sense that the definition of sexual harassment has been limited in scope a little bit. It has to be pervasive and that it has to be objectively offensive. It can't be, and it's not subjective anymore. The test is an objective test going forward. And they've also changed the standard of which you make your decision. It used to be a preponderance of the evidence, but now, which is a lower standard, but now one of the other avenues that schools do have for them is that they can use clear convincing evidence, which is a higher bar and standard that you have to use. We took a look at of the new regulations, and luckily there are some aspects of the law that was not required of secondary education like us. For example, one of the portion of the law required that you have live hearings for students and or staff. And in those hearings, you have a right to cross-examination, but the law allowed for post-secondary education like us that we did not have to follow that, which would be, I find that to be the harshest part of the law, because imagine a student having to confront the respondent. They don't want us to call them the harasser anymore. It's called the respondent. Imagine the student having to confront that individual, and then they have the right to cross-examine that student. So we thought it was best that the district does not adapt that aspect of the law, and we do not have to. And do you guys, that's it. I mean, the law is, it's a departure from what we're used to. It is my hope that some of the litigation that are going on is successful so that some of this does not have to be implemented. But as of right now, that is the law of the land. It is what the Department of Education has put forward.
Francesca, from the chair, if I could.
Of course.
Just to be clear, we really don't have a choice, even though you're not a fan of it. This is, the way it's presented is basically, we have to accept it that way, correct?
You are correct.
And just in terms of the Everett Public School System, you are on board as our Title IX person.
Yes.
With these procedural aspect changes where, for instance, you suggested this 4-section now, the idea that the decision maker can't be the investigator and like this and like that, how will we set up in terms of We've had a problem prior to you getting here where we were shipping things out to have the private investigations being done, things like that that were very costly to the school department. Will we be able to handle this internally with the breakdown into the 4 sections?
Actually, I've thought of the plan of how we can do it for school-based incidents. What we thought of is that the investigator can in fact be the vice principal of a school. They will investigate the complaint, and then the principal could be the decision maker. And the last part of appeals, the appeals always goes to the office of the superintendent and or her designee to make that final decision. Because as you know, the superintendent is the one that makes the final call on anything with discipline if we have to terminate anyways. So that would go into the office of the superintendent for that last portion of it. But we have the mechanism in place that we are to do this. And additionally, we are planning on training school-based leaders on how to handle these situations. And one of the other mechanisms is like having the Title IX person there. My job is to walk them through the process. So all Title IX claims have to be the office of, I have to be given notice that it's in fact occurring. And then my job will be to make sure that the process, there's integrity in the process and helping everyone along the line of making sure that that process is in fact fair and as well as that it's followed.
Very good. Thank you, Princess. Questions? Ms. Lambert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Ms. Canty. So I understand that the live hearings, that was an optional. Were there any other options that we adopted or did not adopt?
So you had a live option, and then the other option that we did in fact adopt was that right before the decision maker make their final decision, both parties have the right to submit questions, relevant questions as it pertains to those allegations. So they can submit question to the opposing side, and the decision maker can ultimately determine whether those questions are proper to be posed, and you have to turn those questions over to the opposing side as opposed to a live hearing.
Okay, but there was no other aspect of the Title IX procedure as a whole that was optional?
Yes.
That was it?
Yeah, secondary schools could either adopt the live option or this mechanism where you submit questions and they determine.
And then if I understand right in reading it, and please correct me if I didn't read it right, only the Title IX coordinator can directly accept the complaint. It can't be secondhand.
So unfortunately, the law has changed. It has to be actual notice. Like there has to be, it can't be like the Title IX person has to be the one that speaks to this person, initiate the process. Like it no longer is what you and I are used to. We now need actual notice. That is one of the things that districts and people, advocates are dealing with, is this aspect of this actual notice versus than what we were used to.
So along those lines, are there plans to have a male counterpart Title IX coordinator for comfort level if it has to be directly reported? Because previously they could go to a person, say a guidance counselor, that would then report it to Title, but now they have to go directly to the Title IX coordinator.
They can, say that again?
So I'm just saying from a gender perspective that if we have a male counterpart, if the person filing the complaint, they would have to go directly to the Title IX coordinator. They couldn't do it through a proxy like a guidance counselor. They would have
So
to
they
go
can
directly
do it
to
through
you.
they can do it through a proxy but to initiate the formal process, it has to be a formal complaint. Like you can file, so you can file a general complaint. I may file a general complaint, but to initiate the formal process, it has to be a formal complaint. You have to decide to move forward. And there are circumstances where the school, we can step in and decide to move forward, but those instances are very limited. They're when it's a teacher versus a child, or when it's a supervisor versus an employee. And nothing, in those circumstances, we have to move forward to ensure, to ensure the integrity of the process as well.
So that just leads to my question: will there be a male counterpart that
we will? And I take your question. We will definitely explore that and see where we can find someone that is a male counterpart to do that work as well. So thank you for bringing that up. We will definitely explore that and put that into one of the things that we consider as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Parker.
Thank you, Ms. Canty. If we approve this tonight, will it be in the employee handbook that is published every fall?
Yes, but most importantly, the new laws are requiring us that we put this online as well. The process needs to be online like yesterday.
Okay. but we haven't missed the publication on the print handbooks then, right? Okay.
Say that again.
So every fall there's a student handbook and an employee handbook that's published and given out.
This would also be included in it as well.
Okay, so we haven't missed the publication deadline.
No, you have not.
Okay.
No, you have not, Mr. Parker.
And I would also assume that this would require ordering new posters to be put in different conference rooms and lounges with your name on it now as the new Title IX coordinator.
So it doesn't require a poster. It requires that we post it in our website. We also send an email out to families, letting them know that there is a Title IX coordinator, and we're gonna take this and minimize it so that families are given proper notice, as well as employees, about the new regulations and the new mandate that we have.
Okay. I would highly, highly recommend that there is some type of posted communication in employee areas identifying you as the new Title IX coordinator. In fact, I highly stress it, and I think my colleagues understand why and would support me in that, and you in that measure. But it's critically important.
Okay, thank you for noting that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Action?
Motion favorable action. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded for favorable action to approve the updated Title IX policy.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Barros, go ahead.
Now, just want to reemphasize what Mrs. Canty said. This comes from Betsy DeVos, from the Secretary of Education. They are the ones who updated that. They are the ones who are bringing, like, I shouldn't say less protection for victims, but they are definitely bringing some more protections for the harassers. And that's one of the reasons that the Commonwealth is suing the federal administration along with other states. Because even though it is something that we have to approve, it is something that I'm particularly against. This updated that Secretary DeVos, which hopefully soon to be former secretary, did it. So just want to reemphasize that to the public that this is something that's coming from Washington, from the Department of Education that has done it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Barrows. Because of that statement, do we have to give equal time now to the other side because you decided to do that? Or how does that work? No. Okay.
You might be busy watching the convention right now.
Okay, motion is made and seconded for favorable action to approve the updated Title IX policy. Roll call, please, Addie.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Sadly, yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze.
Yes. 8 in the affirmative, motion passes.
Can I just say one thing? There wasn't a motion to approve the donation. We just went straight to Title IX, so I didn't know if you guys wanted to go back to that. The $20,000 donation from Alexon.
I thought we did with the letter of thanks.
We said the letter of thanks. I made the motion.
Right, it was a motion and with the letter of thanks.
Oh, I didn't think I did the roll call. Okay, thank you.
That's all right, Addie. That's all right. At least it shows you're still paying attention. You know, you forget I'm here, but you know, you're still paying attention. So thank you. Anything else, Mr. Barrows? Want to make any more political statements or anything else that we have to do here? Or?
No, Mr. Chairman, it's no political statement. It's just a statement that, you know, it's wrong with the.
I understand. Francesca said 24 different attorney generals were suing over this, so I'm sure it's not. I'm sure if we looked at the map of the 24 states that are suing, I'm sure there'd be a pattern here, and it has something to do with red and blue.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adjournment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parker. Motion made and seconded for adjournment. Roll call, please, Addie.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Panarisi,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
and Mr. Abraze.
Yes, I can tell you forgot me. Yes. 8 in the affirmative. We have adjourned. Everybody stay safe. Can't wait to see all your smiling faces again.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Superintendent, for your fantastic presentation tonight.
Oh, and now that the summer's over and we've had our sole August meeting, we will be reverting back to the first and third Mondays of regular meetings. Whether it starts at 6 or 6:30. So plan accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Parker, for the fall update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
See you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.